is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Keljo, the pitch, and it gets away from Weber. And Oregon State's not covering the plate, and scoring from second base is McCarthy.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Been a game changer. This one's out to center field. It is deep. It is oh my goodness! That did not just happen.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And now Amick runs it over Rumsey again, and this one will sail out over the batter's side. Mercy.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
He is ready to go against Vance Honeycutt. First pitch swinging. Honeycutt on the line to left again.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
The 1-0. Tibbs, right field. Gone!
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke.
The sounds of college baseball to open the show, and this is it was a great college baseball weekend, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but I figured we'd change it up a little bit. Craig Smoke is back. Smokey will be back tomorrow. He got in super late last night and had some things to take care of, but he will be back tomorrow. I'm out starting on Friday, but Craig is back. Craig, good to see you. Hope you had a nice, relaxing, I know that very emotional week in Florida, but you did get to see a lot of family who I know you don't get to see that often, so that's always the silver lining to sad time.
Yeah, no doubt. Buried my uncle this past week, and he was the kind of the man of the family on my dad's side now, because my grandfather had passed a few years back, and my grandmother about the same span of time. And so yeah, he was kind of the leader of the crew there these last few years, and he passed away after a long struggle and just battle with cancer, just ugly stuff, as a lot of people have had to deal with that personally or throughout their family know. And he finally, said goodbye a few weeks ago, and we had to take a little bit of time to get everything together, but finally got to go and put him to rest and got to see family I haven't seen, honestly, in like literally years on that side of the family, because even though it's just halfway across the country, just with COVID a few years ago and just busy lives, I hadn't seen my cousins or my uncles in a long time, so I got to do that, and it was great, and appreciate you welcoming me back. And everything looks pretty much the same. There's some new things here. Looks good. Seems like you guys kept everything rolling along quite nicely. Came back to a broken window. Came back to some cool T-shirts. Yeah. Came back with a knee injury. Yeah. So things are the same, and they're different. Florida State's still being and moaning about where they are, so it's different, but it's the same, and so I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. Coming up at 3:30, I got to speak to Dennis Dodd this morning. I texted him and said, hey, could you hop on the show at 3:30? And he said, well, I'm at NACDA, the College Athletic Directors Convention, where he's going to go ask questions like, and every question is going to be like, we don't know, Dennis. We don't know. We have no idea. We're scared and it's cold and I don't know. We have no answers, because that's really what it is. Like, every answer is like, well, it could be this way. And, you were here when we had the Brett Yormark and Lynn Livingstone press conference that they held. And every answer that they had was like, well, that's interesting, but we don't know.
Yeah.
But we don't know. That's what he's going into. But he wrote a column about Michael Alford, and the reason I wanted to talk to him is because, one, it's current news, and Michael Alford, the FSU AD, this is so different than everybody else who's handled this, including Clemson. Clemson's letting Florida State just kind of do all the talking while they do all their stuff in the background. North Carolina is like even further back in the background, but Florida State is the loud voice of this is unacceptable with the ACC, And they're fine with that. And it's curious to me because everything else happens under the cover of night.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that they pretty much made their intentions known. Texas and Oklahoma, we still don't know what their timeline was as far as how they were going to handle their exit to the SEC. We never got to see that because we all got tipped off beforehand, and so the cover was blown, and there was no surprise there. We had full alert on the Pac-12 teams and them looking around, even though there were plenty of deniers and plenty of people spewing some venom about credibility and things like that they all turned out to be completely wrong in the end and had mud on their face. But, that was pretty much well known because of that TV deal that was all out in the open. So that was a little bit of a different. And this definitely falls in that second category of it's public and it's out there and people know there's a real threat. And it's not a matter of getting a TV deal done at this point. The TV deal's too good for the conference as far as the length of it. The money part of it's not good enough, and that's not going to change. So, yeah, at this stage – it's like the Pac-12 where something has to happen. You, in this case, know that unlike the Pac, it was like if they get a TV deal, they stay together. That's, valuable enough, which they got the TV deal. It wasn't valuable enough. The rest is history. With this, it's like there's no way really where this gets solved other than eventually we come to a point where just Florida State gets what they want and whoever else gets what they want and ACC gets what they want and they all go their separate ways. But, nobody knows a timeline on that. We know there's, dates coming up this summer that could, that could be important and can help fill in some blanks there. But, yeah, they've been loud. They've been out there. They've made it known, the entire time of what their intentions are. It's just a matter of being able to get it done behind the scenes. So it's been interesting to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the Pac-12, and we bid an adieu to the Pac-12 officially as at 10:33 Pacific time. And I saw Pat Forty tweet this out. He said Eastern time. But out of respect for the league, I'll move it to I guess it would have been 9:33 Pacific time. At 9:33 Pacific time, Kentucky beat Oregon State 3-2. And then right before that, A&M charged back and beat Oregon. And the Pac-12 has played its final athletic event.
Yeah, college baseball has been a lot of fun, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That Clemson-Florida game yesterday was absolutely nuts. And there's been a lot of really good games in the College World Series so far. But, yeah, that's officially all she wrote, although we don't know what that looks like on the other side. But the Pac-12, as we knew it, it's dead. Yeah, it's done. The network is winding down. I know there's lots of thoughts about what all that could turn into potentially. I still have my questions when it comes to the network of – I get that the cameras you can sell off, although those things depreciate pretty quickly. But the whole idea of, you have a network and somebody else can use it, it's not really how it works. Companies need to want to carry that network, and they don't have much of a reason to right now. So I don't know how all that stands to benefit them outside of, selling off studio equipment. But
everything must go.
Yeah, but if you held on, what value does it have? What value does a network in name have? But Bob Thompson told us, you're only a network if you're being carried by somebody.
Yeah.
So I mean, for now they're done, and I know that there's lots of speculation on what that could turn into. Ultimately, invites elsewhere, rebuilding, all of that. But that's now what's to come next because that's what's up next on their plate. Obviously, playing a different type of schedule these next couple years. In football, they've been able to settle that in some of the other sports as well. But, as we know it now, the old Pac is gone, and we'll see what Washington State and Oregon State can come up with to figure out what this looks like moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into everything else, but it's been really good. I'm very excited because FSU back in the College World Series. Link Jarrett's done a great job. I'm going to be nervous for the next 2 weeks, just how I'm going to be. This is the 24th time they have made it to the College World Series. And Garrett, can you count? I'll give you a second because it's a big number. How many times have they won the College World Series?
I believe that's zero.
Zero times.
Zero
times. Mike Martin, the all-time winningest coach in the history of college baseball. None of those wins came in the last game of the College World Series. Not a one. So, and now Link Jarrett's there, so I'm excited about that. Clemson in Florida had ejections, and the Willie Mays-esque catch I played in the highlight. It went back and forth. And Florida was a shell of themselves for most of the year, and now they're in their 9th straight College World Series. As a matter of fact, they kind of barely made it by their own standards. They were a 3 seed and only were a 3 and not a 4 4 because they're Florida and they'd been to 8 previous consecutive College World Series. So, but they showed out. Like, they lost a lot of people, from last year's team. But again, they were loaded anyway. Coming up, it was just a young team, and they got old at the right time and moved on. The whole College World Series, Craig, is the ACC and the SEC.
Yeah, it is. So that's pretty cool. If you're the SEC, that obviously bodes well moving forward, and especially when you're going to have more money to play around with in baseball moving forward than just about anybody else other than the Big Ten. The Big Ten, obviously, not much of a big baseball threat for a variety of reasons. So, yeah, the SEC's kind of commandeered this thing, much like they did in football in so many ways, although they got a few more national championships to string together to make it like it was in football in the early 2000s. But no reason to believe they don't have a pretty good stranglehold on the sport moving forward, and maybe even softball too. If you go look at Oklahoma and Texas, they're capping off the year. And the ACC, like, something to celebrate, but at the same time, like, how much do you – first of all, the conference pride thing's gotten out of hand. Like, we've allowed the SEC poison to seep into everybody else because of realignment. I've been saying this for a while now, and I kind of – it's coming back to me as we talk to this, but, like, the tribal pride of conferences, like, I get it to a certain extent, but I think we've all gone way overboard with it. But if you're the ACC, you want to chant it out and ACC it up, then there's reason to do so. But at the same time, it's a little bit empty and bittersweet because of the whole fact that you're rooting for a conference that's basically like just scotch taped together at this point in so many ways. Maybe it's stronger, maybe it's duct tape, but it's not permanent glue or permanent adhesive. And so it's a little bit of a strange feeling of like, yay, Florida State, but not really. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of strange.
I'm sure it feels like Big 12 fans in Texas last year.
Right,
like,
yeah. Or even this, like, yay, Oklahoma win the softball championship. Like, that's technically us, but does it really matter or count all that much? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same way. I get it. Like, I'm not mad at anybody who feels that way. I would think so. I would think the same thing on the other side of it. And I've seen it. It's just not, it's not. Like, no matter if it's better for your team or not, I think if you're a fan, you have to admit it's kind of like not cool. Like, it's not cool. You got to stick up for yourself, and I get that. But as a member of a conference, you're like, well, this is, we know what we're doing here. So, yeah, and you'll hear Dennis Dodd talk about that a little bit about FSU and, like, the fact that, and again, this is not them trying to get more out of the ACC. This is them trying to leave. That's it. That's the end game. There's no other end game than them leaving the ACC. There's not a scenario that ends with Florida State and Clemson in the ACC.
Yeah, so it's like cool that you had this great basketball run and this great baseball run, but like I said, bittersweet's the word that comes to mind because it's not all for naught, but it's not all like momentum for the future either, because the people who are creating some of that momentum are hoping to take that momentum and then go place it elsewhere, right? So it's a bit of a strange feeling. But did you have more that you wanted to say on the Alfred article? Because
we'll talk about it a little bit later,
okay,
once we get to it, just to kind of lead into Dennis Dodd here in a minute. But just want to run through the headlines really quick and get to the smokestack here. And there's an actual smoke on stats this week, so it makes sense to call it that again.
Yes.
As were last week, it was just kind of an homage to you guys, or an homage. One of our new sponsors who you'll see us in homage gear at some point this week. We'll all throw it on.
Those are the T-shirts I was referring to in my little rundown of all the little things that I've noticed in the 10 minutes that we started this show. But I got a couple sweet shirts from homage that homage that I'm looking forward to talking about.
Yeah. So here's Woj reports this today, and of course a lot of people around the Big East and college basketball. This is huge news for college basketball. Dan Hurley told the Lakers, thanks for the trip. I love LA, but I'm going back to Storrs, Connecticut. Turned down a 6-year, $70 million deal. I personally think Dan Hurley will be in the NBA soon enough, but I don't think he wants to take over a Lakers team that's trying to make one last run with older players. I think he'd like to take over a younger team with potential.
And with a coach killer named LeBron James, I mean, the one hand you got like, hey, here's maybe the greatest to ever do it, and it'd be really cool to say that you coached him and all that. At the same time, like, how many coaches has he ran through during his career? I think that's part of the the factors that weighed in on him going, you know what, I'm probably better off here.
He's run through as many coaches as Khloe Kardashian has NBA players.
Still not that many, I don't think, but, close enough. Yeah, it's a lot on either side for sure. But, yeah, I think Dan Hurley with a, absolute bombshell decision here. I mean, this changes the entire outlook on UConn basketball and like athletics as a whole, because that's obviously your flagship along with your women's team. But I mean, the idea of losing Danny Hurley at this stage and just sort of where we are, that would have been a nightmare. And so I think that's clearly just colossal news for the Huskies basketball and athletics department. So good for them. I mean, especially in this crazy time where you do worry about if you're not one of like 15 or 20 schools or 30, even if we want to push it to that, but I don't even know if it's that many. But if you're not one of those select few, you're in constant fear of losing everything basically to something bigger and richer. And, it doesn't get much bigger and richer than the Lakers. So even if you are the top dog, the back-to-back national champion, if that franchise comes calling, that's a threat. And so I really thought when I started seeing the reports of like, oh, wow, this looks like it's going to happen. Now, I kept my head out of like everything for the most part while we were away. But this definitely caught my attention these last couple of days as we were starting to get back into things. And I thought we were going to be talking about him taking the Lakers job and what would that mean for UConn and how terrible timing that is. But good for them, man. And I don't know. I guess if LA starts to circle back to J.J. Redick or whatever nonsense was floated out there.
He said something on Gojo and Golic the other day when he was on about once the finals are over, he'll address specifically what Shams reported with The Athletic, which I don't think and I don't think he's trying to call him out, but he's like saying like this is maybe not true.
There's been a couple of times, and I don't know, I don't want to like get personal with this, but there's been a couple of times now with reports where you do really wonder about the gambling ties to the sponsorships and kind of how all that works right now. It's a very weird territory we're in, and I think that was one of those examples of like, there was betting on these odds, and here's these reports about, that all just seemed kind of fishy. And so I'm looking forward to hearing that aired out a little bit more.
Yeah, but we'll see. And it may not be him at all. But I think this is great. Look, this is great for college basketball. You've got a team coming back going for a three-peat. Now, you would have had a three-peat going for a three-peat anyway without Dan Hurley. But Dan Hurley is back turning down the NBA and one of the most prestigious franchises for the three-peat, or the attempt at the three-peat. You've got all these teams all over the country loading up, the Big 12 loading up, the SEC loading up. Calipari's in a new spot. Kentucky's got a new coach in Mark Pope, and they've got a whole new roster. So, like, all these brand names are hitting the gas trying to catch UConn, and it should be a very, very intense college basketball season and a fun one from the jump. With the new tournament in Vegas and all the different things that they have. So this just starts out like this is – if you're a fan of college basketball, this is great news. Even if you hate UConn, which I understand. They won back-to-back. Danny Hurley's not for everybody. But just as now you've got a team to go chase, much like, Nick Saban in Alabama, I think it makes everything – interesting for 2024, 2025.
Yeah, I think from we were just talking about with Redick and, the reporting and all that, that'll be interesting to see how that's followed up with, to see what the Lakers do now. I am somewhat interested in that. But, yeah, far more interested in what it means for college basketball. And it's great. It's great news, like you said, for all those reasons. And UConn going for yet another title. Now he'll get rewarded with everything that I would imagine he could possibly want at this stage. I know that the contracts were kind of what made that and added more fuel to that idea that he could leave, was the fact that there were still some things being worked out on that side with UConn. So I'd imagine that's going to get taken care of real quick and will be nice and fat, and he won't have to worry for anything. So, yeah, they're going to be geared up and ready to go defend that title or to go and try to win that title again. And they're the hunted. They're right at the top of the food chain. There's a lot of other teams in this portal era that have fattened up and muscled up pretty quickly and look formidable as well. So, yeah, it's a monster college basketball season already shaping up, and this was the cherry on top of the offseason potentially. We got a long way to go until the season starts to roll back around, but this would have been sport altering had he left, and instead it just reinforces it and has a big bad there at the top for people to chase. And so that's awesome for UConn and for the sport of college basketball.
All right. This from Ross Dellinger. Here's we've got a couple of NIL related things today. Learfield has added, and they have most of the teams, rights, media rights around the country. They've got a large section. But Learfield has expanded its NIL package, so they're going to be able to now facilitate, especially with House versus NCAA, they're going to be able to facilitate deals. We've seen it here with some of the media partners that Baylor has. They can do that now as well. So now the media companies who have kind of been making money off the players too. That's the other thing that doesn't get mentioned in this. Like a big company like Learfield, they've made tons of money off the players themselves, selling advertising. Hey, look, this is a picture with the star player in it. Like they've made money off it too, and now they can facilitate that. For them, this was win-win. They're still going to make money. Now they just have to point it in a different direction. Their splits aren't going to change.
So what is it? So basically, Learfield can say you did the post game interview with us. Here's $500.
Yeah, Learfield can also so if Learfield sells a car dealership, this is the official car dealer of the USC Trojans. And I don't even know if they have USC. I think they do, but this is the official car dealership of the USC Trojans and quarterback Miller Moss.
Gotcha,
they can do those things, which I think that's all good. I think that's a lot smoother than the way things go around, and it should help also departments maybe close the gap on some of those NIL things that they're going to have to do with $20 million or $22 million coming out of their budget that they had every year.
Yeah, I suppose so. This is the part that I didn't really miss all the money talk while we were away, but I get that it's such a huge factor now. So I know that in talking to some people when we did bring up sports a little bit, there was a lot of eye roll when it came to NIL, and I think some of that's still just kind of uneducated, not really knowing other than just hearing sort of it's just a free-for-all, and it's no, it's not quite that. It's started to rein in a little bit, and there's examples like this now where it's starting to get a little bit more coordinated and not as wild, wild west as you would say. So, yeah, that's great for the players. Great, sounds like for Learfield as well, so a win-win. And, just another loose end, I suppose, tied up, or another way to make money now tied up. And I'm sure we're going to see, more dominoes like this continue to fall in this changing landscape. But that sounds like it's good for everybody all the way around, and particularly for the athletes. So good for them.
All right, and we'll run through some of these NIL things. There's one that's going to make it's already made me upset. I don't understand the draw of it at all. But I'm not these people. But we'll get to that in a second. Craig, you saw the Baylor uniforms before you left, and we talked about them at length. Minnesota, also a Nike school. Does something feel familiar about these to you, Craig?
Yeah, it looks just like Baylor's, but with different colors on it.
Yep. So Nike, their big innovation. So Phil Knight got in a room and said, hey, college uniforms, what you got? Dan? And Dan goes, guys, stripes.
Yeah, shoulder stripes. Shoulder stripes.
And then they said, done, end of meeting, everybody out. Lunch is early.
Yeah, they the far right one looks like Arizona State a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually guess the left can too. But yeah, I wasn't here when Baylor's anthracite ones dropped. I think that came out right afterwards.
Yeah.
I loved those. Those looked awesome. I liked the nod to the old teams with the bear claws. I'm with others who said that should have been just the base set and just different colors, but I know there's been a long explanation as to why that was not the case, right? That's been long explained of Nike has their base sets. And so for anybody that it didn't sink in for, I submit to you this photo right here to show you that Nike has their base sets that they use, and it's not completely unique to every single school. So yeah, there's a base template clearly, and that's what was used for Minnesota and for Baylor and for others. And I guess there's some that are different, but I think it's pretty clear now that, yeah, not everybody's completely customized. I mean, those look good. I don't know. I'd have to see side by side to see how different that they are. I liked Baylor's just because I felt like their previous ones were just so daggum plain. I mean, they had no markings on them. They were so generic. So I liked the change, even if it is similar to other people's, but I know that's not the most popular opinion necessarily, but those look cool, I guess, for Minnesota.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. All right, next up, I put in a spot here for college baseball update. We kind of talked about it, but so far there's only one game that is going to be played today, and that's Georgia versus NC State. Winner goes to the College World Series. Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida State, Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, and A&M are in. And my God, how the Pac-12 ended with Oregon State not covering home on a pass ball and the runner on second scoring from there. And then Oregon was in complete control of the game against A&M until they got to the 7th or 8th inning last night. Bases loaded, walk, run. Walked in a run. Beamed in a run, walked in a run, grand slam. A&M blew that open. And A&M was really kind of the best team most of the year until the last little stretch. And Tennessee passed them a little bit, Kentucky too. But this should be whoever goes out of Georgia and NC State, it will be a really good College World Series top to bottom. So those are the teams that are in, 7 out of the 8. And if you're a fan of them, you can go and call Rocco's and make your shot orders now.
Yeah, no LSU this year, so I think they're going to be hurting in comparison to last year with the amount of shots, although that was pretty ridiculous last year. I think that it's cool to see that there's 2 conferences that are going to kind of have bragging rights, a little war for bragging rights, even though, as we touched on earlier, for the ACC, it's a little bit empty and bittersweet since, there's teams actively looking to leave your league, and so it's not like as prideful as it is on the other side for the SEC, as we know, where it's almost too far the other way as far as pride goes. But, yeah, I mean, that's a nice field of really good teams. A&M sure feels like they've got kind of that magic touch right now. I know playing at Bluebell is a significant home field advantage, but they've got a really good team in Schlossnagle. That was a big home run hire a few years back to go and poach him from TCU, and it's obviously paying dividends, and they've been a lot of fun. And, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you how massive it would be for A&M to win a national championship in a major men's sport. That would be incredible for them, especially the passion for baseball. But that's going to be easier said than done because there's a lot of other really good teams, and we touched on the death of the Pac officially, or at least this version of it. And so, Oregon, I'm sure, is, a little bit bittersweet to go back to that word for them just because of the history. But I think that they're excited about the future, and then we'll see what happens with Oregon State ultimately. But it was a nice run for those 2 teams and a lot of really great games over the weekend. So looking forward to seeing what happens in Omaha. Yeah, absolutely. Next up, this is a weird one, Craig, but I'm not all that surprising. Members of NC State's 1983 national championship team are suing the NCAA, which they claim has systematically and intentionally misappropriated the Cardiac Pac's publicity rights without the players' consent and paying them nothing. Obviously that's the team that kind of launched March Madness in the modern sense. Jim Valvano, right?
Yeah, Jim Valvano. Like, that's the Cinderella. Like, that's what did it. I would say that right before that, it was probably Bird and Magic were the first part of that chapter. And then when they went to the NBA, they helped launch that part of it. And then the Cardiac Pac there. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, look, they are the first and last shot almost of every montage of March Madness. So I don't know if they've misappropriated that. But, look, the NCAA is a wounded animal. If you think you can get a couple bucks, I guess is now the time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's name, image, and likeness has been used, it's Jim Valvano. So, yeah. I mean, he's his celebration, throwing his hands up and, I guess starting to run onto the court, that's the kind of key moment I always remember seeing in the montages. Now, haven't paid particularly close attention, where's Waldo looking for every NC State glimpse from that team. So maybe they're more broadly used than just that, but that's what immediately comes to mind is just the initial Jim Valvano sort of reaction. So everybody's, smelling the money and seeing the lawsuits, like you said. And I'd imagine if you feel like there's a little ray of light to be able to go, pursue as far as taking some more bite out of the NCAA, now's the time to do it. So I don't know what kind of a case they have to stand on. We saw there was a statute of limitations as far as when it came to the recent settlement, right? That only went back so far. I don't know how all that works in this case. We're talking about, nearly 40 years or exactly 40, over 40 years now? Yeah, 1983 to 2024. Yeah, over 40 years. So I don't know how all that works, Paul, in the court of law, but if you're going to go for it and say, hey, you owe us, now's the time to do it. So I guess that's something that'll play out in court, and we'll see how that all gets resolved. But a lot of people, I think, are probably scratching their heads going, I was mildly to pretty successful in college, and we didn't get anything. And I think a lot of people from various time periods are looking back now going like, gee, we did get gypped. We got totally ripped off in what we probably should have gotten, but I don't know, how far back you can take that. So this will be a good test case of that, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and finally, before we get to some comments on Dennis Dodd, a high school quarterback in Missouri is going to receive a free Dodge Challenger. He is one of the top quarterbacks he's a 5-star commit. Matt Zoller signs an NIL deal. He'll receive a free SRT from a car dealership in Missouri. And other than that guy being a booster of some other school, I have no idea. He'll do appearances and things. What a high school kid gets you in advertising.
Yeah, that's what we need, those more Dodge Challengers on the roads, and especially with more inexperienced drivers driving them. That's exactly what I wanted for our roadways. But in all seriousness, I don't care about high school NIL, and I'm not going to, and I'm not going to pretend to care about it. But this is interesting, and I'm not trying to dismiss your story because I do think it's worth talking about. But, as far as the promotion of this type of stuff, I don't want any part of it. I'm a grown-ass man, dog, and, I'll talk about high school recruits and freshman impact players and all that, but I don't care about what money they're making. Yeah. I don't care about what car they're driving. I don't care. They're 17 years old. I don't care. I'm too old to care. And I've started to see a lot of Jeremy Crabtree's reporting and On3 about all the high school NIL stuff. Good for them. Good for those states that have that. Good for those high school players. That's great for them. I can only imagine how many of my friends wish that would have been the case when they were growing up. But beyond that, beyond the good for them, I just think this has nightmare written all over it, and I want no part of it.
I agree with you completely. And I normally I'm going to skip this story kind of altogether. But I enjoy your reactions on these things so much that's why I put it in. Garrett's nodding his head.
I'm full on board with Craig. This is the stupidest thing ever.
It's really stupid. And maybe I don't get it. I just know I just drove a Charger. Smokey drove a Challenger. They're really fun cars. They're awesome. But I just know that a 17-year-old would not get me to buy one. In fact, in fact, it would do the opposite. I would be like, oh, am I too old for this car? Mm-hmm. Is this what this is? Okay. If you want to tell me this is my midlife crisis car, have a 17-year-old drive it and be like, oh, well, I mean, look, cool for him. I'm just saying it's not going to resonate with me as much.
Well, they're not looking to resonate with us. They're looking to resonate with the other people around his age.
They're looking to resonate with Matt Zollers. Well, that's the other thing. It's whatever. They're just trying to resonate with Matt Zollers.
Well, that's the thing too, man. Is now this is going to be just as it's all getting sort of cleared up, even though not entirely cleared up. It's seeping into the high schools now, in just broad daylight. And look, legally that's what's allowed, and legally that's the way that it should be. But I'm not going to be one that's swayed. But they're not looking to sway me. They're looking to sway recruits. And they're looking to maybe sway younger people as well. But, I mean, I can only give high school kids so much attention, and I do that with their play on the field and maybe a little bit of their recruitment. But as far as, caring about them getting a car and NIL money and all that, I'm too old for that stuff. And I do not care, nor will I ever. But good for everybody involved here, all the grown-ups getting that recruit that they wanted, and him getting the car that he wanted, that's pretty cool for Matt Zollers. He's winning, man. Good for him. I have nothing against him whatsoever. You're a top high school recruit. You got schools, wanting you to be the guy. Missouri obviously is where you're headed, but to get a car out of the deal, that's pretty sweet, man. That's the era we're in now. That's definitely a departure from what we grew up with, but things change.
All right, here's what we'll do. We'll play Dennis Dodd right now, and then we can talk about kind of some of the things he said after that. We'll push some of that other stuff, Garrett, to later in the show. That way, look, this is an interview with Dennis Dodd. He got to sit down with Michael Alford at Dick Howser Stadium this week and talk to him, and the reason it stuck out to me was every other AD in this same position, when you ask them questions, was just well, we're committed to the league that we're in. Or, I mean, yeah, you got us. We're going to the SEC. Oops. Mm-hmm. Brent got a good source. Like there's, how long were you working on it? Don't worry about it. That's not germane to the conversation. Well, it kind of is, but, if you don't want to tell us, then fine. But Michael Alvord been very vocal about FSU's plans and where they're going to be. And like every alumni event he goes to, he makes some sort of, he was in Chicago a few months ago and said a thing like, I love Chicago. I've been up here a lot, and I think we'll be up here a lot more in the future, which made people think like, oh, he's trying to join the Big Ten because the office is in Chicago, all those different things. But we'll see what happens down the line. Dennis Dodd talked to him. I talked to Dennis Dodd. Very interesting conversation that he and I had. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Make this the summer of Jeep at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Jeep Compass under $30,000 or save $13,000 on a Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, where the thrill of the drive meets unbeatable savings. Feel the adrenaline as you conquer the road in a 2023 Dodge Durango RT. Now with a jaw-dropping $12,500 off. Or unleash the power of the 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT, now available with remarkable $11,000 off. Feel the rush of pure performance and style as you dominate the urban jungle. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of Dodge Power Shot Days. Hurry in and claim these incredible savings before they're gone. Come by and let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction with a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you. Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports, our good friend Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. And Dennis, you got a chance to talk with FSU AD Michael Alford over the weekend as FSU made its way to the College World Series. And obviously they're the most, I guess, intriguing story in college athletics right now as an individual entity, as they are on their way out of the ACC eventually. He seems, I wouldn't say cavalier, but very confident about talking about the future. What kind of struck you about the way he's approached this to realignment compared to everybody else who's done this kind of under the cover of night?
I think you're right. Paul, I think you're right. The way he, not cocky, but confident. I think that's just the way he is. He used to work at USC. He's got loads of experience. He, when I had met with him, it was at the regional, and he had just come back from Carlsbad, California, with a golf team that's been, I think, second nationally. And we now know Florida State's going to the College World Series. They were just ACC champions. So he kept stressing the brand. And that's what this is about. Florida State thinks it's better than the ACC. And maybe they are. But, the industry doesn't think so. They are worth about what Big 12 teams are worth, about what ACC teams are worth in terms of media rights revenue, which is about $41 million per year. Now, if offered to the Big Ten or SEC, would you take that and maybe get a full share in 10 years? You absolutely would. And that's where they think they're at right now.
And look, Dennis, full disclosure, I'm a Florida State alum, and I agree with your assessment. Like, had they not had, 6-7 years of really bad football, like maybe they'd have a little bit of a better argument. But, and look, Clemson really kind of has this same argument that they do, maybe a little bit more because recently they've been better. Yeah. But, again, the conference and Florida State and Clemson as a whole did not do the best job of, when they looked across and watched the SEC doing what they were doing, matching that at all. And so they kind of are where they are. I agree that maybe they're worth more money than the other teams in the ACC, but that's not the agreement that they're in. And that's why this makes it so complicated.
It's complicated, but I tend to cut to the chase on this. I mean, you said it, they look like they're leaving at some point. What the timeline is, I can't tell you. But I think it's just a matter of negotiations now. What's the number? They had this giant televised board of trustees meeting last year, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And their bean counters came up with $572 million as a figure that would get them out of the ACC. Well, that was a little bit of home cooking because that plays into their assessment that the ACC contract is way out of line. And so if they start at 572, it ain't going to be 572. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. What that number is, I don't know. But I think the next date to watch for Florida State is August 15th. That's when any team that intends to leave the ACC has to notify the league a year's notice on August 15th. I think they will let that date pass, because I think if and when they leave the ACC and it is a negotiation, then that will be negotiated, if you know what I mean. Like when they leave will be negotiated, whether it's 9 months or 15 months. That'll be in the package. So I don't think August 15th is necessarily a line in the sand right now.
And look, Clemson has the same plan. They're not as vocal as Florida State, and Florida State is doing kind of all that work for them, which might be one of the smarter plans in realignment that we've seen. Is like, look, we'll file everything and we'll do all this thing on our end, but when it comes to the talking, we'll let Tallahassee do that.
Yeah, it's two different lawsuits for two different reasons. Well, no, the reasons are the same. They want to get out, but it's two different lawsuits. Clemson and Florida State have sued the ACC. The ACC has sued them. Now they're going through venue battles. Will it be in Leon County next to the state capitol in Tallahassee? Will it be in North Carolina where the ACC is located? So at that kind of stuff, we're really preliminary type stuff. But, and I forgot to ask Michael Alford about this, they've got a not-so-secret document that the Tampa Bay Tribune was able to unearth that really shows how long they've been working on this, what kind of people they have involved, what they want to do. And it's called Project Osceola. It sounds a little secret, doesn't it? But started in, if anybody's got a subscription to the Tampa Tribune, it's out there. It started in September of 2022, and it includes projections on private equity, licensing rights, naming rights for Doak Campbell. There's not a lot of college stadiums that I can think off the top of my head that are Toyota Stadium at Doak Campbell Field. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going to do. That's going to be a lot of money for them. Then you add on the house settlement stuff, which affects everybody. They've got some big plans, ambitious plans.
Yeah, the only one I can think of is Jones AT&T in Lubbock. Like when the story broke last week, that's the only one I could think of at all that has that kind of deal. And I'm not even sure how much Tech really gets from AT&T on that one compared to what the deals are going to be like now that everybody's kind of allowed to put logos on the field and whatnot, which I'm sure Florida State and Clemson in the next couple years will have 70 if they could, because they need to close that gap. But do you get the sense that it is not worth the Big Ten and SEC's time right now, even if they've met with Michael Alford or anybody at Clemson, to even discuss it, because they have no idea when this would be? Like, it could be 2 years from now. It could be 4 years from now. It's going to happen eventually, because that's what Florida State and Clemson want. But, and they don't want to be there, but who knows when it is? And what would Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti even have to say about it? Because they'd be like, yeah, we'd love them. It's 6 years from now. There's a lot of things that have to happen. I have, anecdotal evidence that the other power force commissioners have been warned, don't tamper with Florida State or any of our schools, which makes sense. It's torturous interference. That really lands you in court pretty quick if you're talking to them now. And again, you don't have to. The Big Ten played with 18 for the first time. The SEC was 16. They want to see how that goes. I suspect now, have they vetted this behind closed doors? Absolutely, they have. But what I suspect is, what I know is Florida State legally would have to extricate itself. And only at that time, because it is so sensitive for all parties, then, do those schools maybe get involved. But right now, as I told you guys, they're not worth the pro rata. They're not worth the approximately $60 million that the SEC is going to take in with their new media rights deal for school, and the 75 seem to be $100 million that the Big Ten's going to have. So what do you do with that? Oregon and Washington came into the Big Ten for half share. Well, you had to. It was a dying conference, and that's a generational decision to go to the Big Ten. You are set for life. The Big Ten, we'll wait 10 years for a full share, no problem. We'll figure it out. That's what would happen to Florida State. I'm curious, and I'm not sure he would answer this, or anybody would, because it just sounds bad. But for Florida State and Clemson, and probably North Carolina in all this, even though they're much more divided, if you ask them, is this about South Carolina or Florida or any of the schools that are in the SEC, that's not really the big thing about them making the money. I do think ego-wise, it's more about the fact that Rutgers and Vanderbilt and Indiana and Purdue make more money than Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina. Yeah, that's right. They're valued more than Florida State. And that's a separate discussion, because I think with the Super League, you guys remember that a few months ago? Yeah. I think what you saw there, my takeaway was, okay, 80 teams, who gets cut? And my message that I got was, if and when that happens, Alabama's going to wake up someday and go, why is Vanderbilt making the same money as us? Well, that's Florida State. Yeah. Why is Vanderbilt? And Michigan goes, why is Purdue making the same as us? And so those kind of things are going to happen. So, yeah, they've got to do that. I will tell you, you brought up North Carolina. That's a great point. I think they want the same thing. They want out. But I think them being quiet
They can do it because they can. Okay, let's say Florida State and or Clemson get out. So that's not the same conference they signed up for. So without going to court, they just pull out the contract and go, you know what? We're out of here. This isn't the league that we signed up for. We're going elsewhere. And I will tell you, they are after Florida State probably, North Carolina is the most valuable piece out there. And I'm not talking about Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not going anywhere right now, but North Carolina is highly valued because of the brand, because of the Jumpman brand, because of Nike, because of basketball. And people don't realize that. They're going to be in this, I think, as well.
Finally, and thanks for your time this morning, Dennis. Really appreciate it. What do the schools like? Is there anything outside of their, long contract that the other schools can really do to improve their situation, especially given the fact that ESPN has this look in? What is it, next year or the year after?
February. Yeah.
In February, yeah, next year in February to kind of slow the roll.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. That was negotiated in, how far are we into this, 8 years ago. And all it says is they can have a look into the contract in February, decide to have a look into the contract in February of 25 to adjust things in 27. The league's not going anywhere, but it was pretty smart. Somebody at ESPN said, wow, if there's membership changes, if there's realignment, let's take a look at what we paid for it. You've got not only that, you've got two look-ins in the new CFP contract. One accounts for, I think the word is substantive or substantial realignment. I would dare say that Florida State moving would be substantial realignment. There's a look-in for that. Ill-defined, but there's another one in 27 to look at the payout and membership, and that's an ESPN thing too.
Oh, before I forget, did he talk any about private capital, private equity?
Yeah.
Is he okay with that, or is that? I mean, there's divided views on what that really means. If you ask Drew Weatherford, he's like, no, it's really just an investment, and it's not Red Lobster. But I mean, that's what all private equity firms would say, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he did talk about that. They're all in on this. They've got, you mentioned Drew Weatherford. Drew Weatherford's a former quarterback who is the founder and CEO of something called Weatherford Capital, private equity firm in Tampa. He's also a trustee at Florida State. He's all in on this, exit thing. They're engaged with JP Morgan Chase. I want to say they're involved with Redbird Capital, which is a huge one.
They are, yeah.
But you're right. There are divided opinions on what this stuff does. Basically, private equity buys revenue streams. So they're betting on Florida State's value to go up in some way. Now, if it goes to the Big Ten or SEC, it absolutely goes up. And so they have that on their portfolio. That's an investment that people can see. What people don't realize is that private equity firms want like 10 to 12% back return on investment at least. So it's like I'm trying to think of a show where you give away part of your equity.
Shark Tank, yeah.
So you're buying some of the equity of whatever Florida State is in the future, but they are heavily interested and heavily invested in that.
Yeah. Dennis, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed Dick Howser Stadium, which was one of my favorite places to be in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's a fun place to watch a ball game and enjoy. You're at a convention all week, right?
I'm at NACA, the National Athletic Directors Convention in Las Vegas, and so you can only imagine the angst going on here. There's not much partying. They're all trying to figure out how they're going to come up with $22 million a year per house.
Well,
among other things.
Look, they're in Vegas. Just go bet it all on Black 22.
Right. There you go.
All right.
Thanks. Which is what you're going to do anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke. Smokey will be back tomorrow. Jon Wilner, the Wilner Hotline, joins us now. And John, at about 9:30 your time last night, the Pac-12 played its last athletic event, or ended its last athletic event. And did you have moments of like, well, this is finally over? Thoughts on that? As a matter of fact, when I texted you this morning, you thought Oregon had won because they were in control of that game.
The last I saw, wasn't Oregon up like 8-3 or something?
They were.
Yeah, man. Hey, college baseball is crazy. You know, I've gone through like 5 phases where I thought, well, that's kind of the end of the Pac-12, right? I mean, June 30th, 2022, when USC and UCLA leave. August 4th, last summer, when 10 schools bolted, or 8 schools bolted, you know, and then there's the last Pac-12 football game, and the last Pac-12 basketball game, and then the last Pac-12 conference championship, which was the baseball tournament. And then the passing of Bill Walton was kind of an informal moment there of the conference moving on. And so I guess last night technically counts as the last Pac-12 event as we know it, but I've been through it so many times here that it kind of didn't really hit me.
Yeah, John, and is this the end? I mean, that's the question that remains, right, when it comes to Oregon State, Washington State, whatever happens beyond that. But, I see Oregon State fans, the baseball team does well. Hey, hopefully this translates. Whatever basketball success, hopefully that translates. What do you think ultimately translates or doesn't translate in this new era for teams like an Oregon State and a Washington State and what they're hoping to maybe create?
Yeah, well, I mean, technically there will be a Pac-12 conference, because the NCAA has a 2-year grace period where you can compete with fewer than 8 teams. So, this football season, there's going to be a Pac-12 with two schools. Once we get to the summer of 2026, what happens? I think the best bet is that there is a reformed conference that has a bunch of schools from the Mountain West and maybe some schools from the Central Time Zone. I think, UTSA, for instance, is an intriguing option. But that would be my guess. Then the question becomes, beyond 26, what does it look like into the next decade? Do Cal and Stanford return because the ACC blows up? Does UCLA return because the Big Ten just doesn't fit? Is there a football super league that forces a lot of the schools to come back because they don't make the football super league, right? I mean, if there's a 30 or 40 school super league, I think USC, Washington, and Oregon are in it, but I don't know if anybody else is. So I think there's a whole bunch of ways that the Pac-12 could reform in some semblance of what we have come to know. But just on the immediate time frame, I think by the summer of 2026, there's a good chance there will be a Pac-12 that has a bunch of Mountain West schools and the Cougars and Beavers.
Do you think that will benefit them going forward? Is that just benefit those teams from the Mountain West going forward, or would that be just a Band-Aid until we get to a Super League?
Well, I think that both probably. The Mountain West has been around for 25 years, right? Even as depleted as the Pac-12 brand is, I think there's still more value in the Pac-12 brand than the Mountain West brand. And the interesting piece is the Mountain West TV contract with Fox and CBS expires in the summer of 26 at the same time that Oregon State and Washington State would have to reform the Pac-12. Those two tracks crisscross, and so the Mountain West schools are going to need a new TV deal, and the Pac-2 schools are going to need a new conference. And so I think that there's a pretty decent chance that you would see some kind of reformation with Fox and maybe CBS with a TV deal there under the Pac-12 banner. But none of those schools are ever getting into the Super League. The only question is going to be whether whatever they create then ends up with more company from schools that are omitted, right? I mean, I've seen that proposal that circulated a few months ago with the 70 permanent members of a Super League, and then you got the 10 rotating. That doesn't work. I don't think that that's viable. To me, a Super League only works if you've got 30 or 40 schools.
John, I know Brett Yormark recently talked to the folks over at Arizona, everybody getting prepared for the big moves this upcoming year. I know he's spoken a couple different times here in recent weeks. Has there been anything as you followed along with Yormark that stands out of interest? Obviously, anytime he says anything about business and being open, everybody thinks, oh my God, here we go. Here's more realignment. But did that strike your interest or anything else potentially he had to say to Arizona or otherwise?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been tracking Yormark in person or by Zoom 3 times in the last 6 months. I sat down with him at the Big 12 meetings in Scottsdale in early May. I was on a video call with him after the Big 12 spring business meetings 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And then last week, I watched his presentation to the Arizona Board of Regents. That's both Arizona and ASU's governing board. And, he is clear about open for business, but it is clearly not about expansion right now. His open for business to him means I am trying to find ways to get more revenue for these schools because everybody's got a $20 million expense coming with the settlement in that house case, and he is trying to figure out ways to generate more revenue. I think that the Hollywood style seating that the Big 12 is trying to do, I think that's one way, and there's going to be others. They are constantly trying to come up with ways that can drive revenue, and even if it's just a few $100,000 here and there, it matters because the expenses are going to skyrocket once the settlement terms take effect, which is probably next fall. But I don't see any imminent Big 12 expansion, on that end.
John, have you heard anything from Cal or Stanford that would have this last year? There was a time where both those schools thought they were in the driver's seat in the conference, and that nothing this bad would ever happen to them, particularly Stanford, just because of who they are. And look, Stanford honestly could probably find a point where they don't need any of this and move on, and financially they'd be fine, but they wouldn't be on the big stage like they like to anymore. But have they changed their view on what makes a conference and what kind of conference they need to be in, given that could shift again in a very short amount of time through no fault of their own?
Well, they certainly, folks on both campuses are clearly watching what's going on in the ACC. There's no doubt about that. To me, the question is whether they are actually taking material steps to create a plan B in case in a year or two the ACC does kind of break apart, right? Both schools were caught off guard by the Pac-12's implosion. They did not see that happening, and they probably should have. But they are, both of them, Stanford's got way more money than Cal, obviously. Stanford has more money than anybody, essentially, except maybe Harvard. But both schools have got, they look at things differently. They look at college sports differently than most of the schools that play major college football. And they have got to get comfortable with this new era. They have got to get comfortable with players on the payroll, because that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, starting next fall, it's going to be $20 million expense for the revenue sharing. And it's an institutional, cultural issue at both places, and they're not going to be able to compete at the highest level in the ACC or anywhere else if their leadership does not get comfortable with the fact that, hey, you gotta play by the rules everybody else is playing by, or you're gonna fail and you're gonna basically become irrelevant.
Speaking of leadership, Arizona State made it official with Graham Rossini as their athletic director a couple of weeks ago. What kind of shape is Arizona State in, you feel like, heading into this first year in the Big 12? And I know there was a little bit of unhappiness or a little bit of a pushback originally when they were going through with hiring Rossini as AD, but just kind of how does it feel around the Sun Devils right now?
Well, I usually judge all of it based on your football program. I know the Big 12 basketball is a huge deal, right? And ASU basketball under Bobby Hurley, they've had a good spring in terms of restocking their roster with the transfer portal and some recruits. I don't see them competing for a top 10 finish in the Big 12 in either sport. Football is got, they still have got the NCAA sanctions hanging over them. They're going to struggle on both fronts. Financially, ASU, leadership, ASU, both ways, they are different, right? Their president, Michael Crow, takes a very different approach to college sports, and they are taking their athletic department and basically moving it under the umbrella of the university financially. Now, we'll see what that means. We'll see if that means they can spend more, right? They're bleeding money right now. But is this move, this change, going to allow them to spend more? Or is it going to mean they're going to have to spend less because everything they do is going to be watched by the university? I don't have an answer for you, but ASU is just a very different place than most major college athletic departments.
Well, both. I mean, Arizona obviously has had more success recently. The football team just had their best season in God knows how long, and the basketball team is still a juggernaut. They still are who they are. But both. I mean, is it like a state thing that they have kind of problems with their budgets? Because Arizona had their own budget crisis.
They did. They had a huge budget crisis. The thing is, a lot of schools out here in the Pac-12 have money problems, right? Part of that's because their season ticket sales aren't great for football. But there's 7, 8 schools in the Pac-12 that are heavily reliant on university support to balance their books. Arizona and Arizona State are an interesting situation, though, because they are in the same system, yet they have very different financial structures. Because ASU's got this massive online program, so they have no problem with revenue, whereas Arizona has been a very tightly run ship. So it's almost like two different financial models, even though the schools are in the same system, and it's much harder for Arizona financially to maneuver than it is for ASU, and yet ASU has still struggled because of mismanagement, right? It also gets back to management, and the Herm Edwards era was obviously a disaster, and that has set them way back. I mean, it was only 3.5 years ago, ASU beat Arizona 70-7 in football. And now you look at the two programs, and Arizona is beating Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, and ASU is not in a bowl game and about to go on probation.
John, last thing, when you've talked about House versus NCAA a little bit here, when all that came down, because we haven't had you on the show since it did, are you, especially hearing all these, ADs and presidents all said, well, we knew this was coming down eventually. Are you surprised that they don't at least have some plans in place yet, and that they're going to be scrambling until next year to figure out how to apply all this?
No, because it's college sports, and I don't have very high expectations for any aspect of it, right? Now, but part of the problem is that there's a lot of unknowns, right? Because we don't know if the settlement's going to be approved by the judge. We don't know if it is going to make the NCAA essentially immune from other lawsuits. Other antitrust lawsuits. We don't know what the Title IX implications are going to be. We don't know how the schools are going to pay for it. We don't know what's going to happen with NIL collectives. So it's this groundbreaking development, and yet it's not final. And I think that a lot of schools don't know what to do because they're waiting on these other pieces to fall into place, and that could be a long time, right? I mean, to me, it gets back to the fact that the agreement was reached without collective bargaining. And so I don't know how it can hold up legally, right? Because there's no players union. So to me, this is not the beginning of the end in this revolution of college sports. It's only the end of the beginning.
I love the way you put that, John. Not the beginning of the end. It's the end of the beginning. Absolutely great stuff, John. Always great to have you on. Thanks for hopping on today. And, I know that you thrived on the Pac-12. I'm kind of sorry it's officially over. It's kind of a weird day when you think about it that way.
Yeah, to me, it's just today was the Danny Hurley day, and tomorrow's going to be something else. And college sports it is crazy how it's now making news year round. And the thing is that all these developments affect all the schools, right? I mean, what happens in the Big Ten affects the Big 12, and what happens in the ACC affects the SEC and the former Pac-12 schools. So it's all interconnected, and there's no shortage of things to write about. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Los Angeles Lakers once again whiff on a big college coach. About once every 20 years, right. They do that. That's right. Yeah. John, have a great summer, and we'll talk to you again soon. I'm sure something's going to pop up.
I said hello. Thanks a lot.
We will. Yeah, Jon Wilner, one of our favorite guests, really has a great way of breaking all that stuff down. And it is weird. Like, it's officially the Pac-12 is over as we knew it.
As we knew it, yes, but not over. Yeah, because there's
I don't want to get the corrections on us, but
Pac-2, Pac-2 is alive and well. The Pac-12 is dead.
Yeah.
How about we put it that way? Yeah, Pac-12 is dead. Pac-2 is alive. How well they are, I guess, depends on what day it is in kind of what is in the news cycle, but I do find it intriguing in all this realignment stuff. I had this thought while I was gone, and then I'll expand more from the Pac-12 point of view, but I do love the passion that there is for that part of the fandom. I do think, though, for the Big 12 and its fandom, there's going to have to come a point where your excitement doesn't get generated solely by what teams you can take.
Yeah.
I think that for the summertime, it's a fun exercise, and it's cool to speculate, and especially now because there's legitimate reasons to believe that this shoe could drop, which leads to that shoe dropping and all of that. But I think the Big 12 has become so consumed with realignment the last couple of years because they went from everything's like just peaceful and every day to, oh, my God, everything's changed. Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. And then ever since then, it's been grab these four and the whole process of that and then moving them in. And then, oh, my God, the Pacs may be dying or we're dying. We don't know for sure. We better kill them before they kill us or do what we can. And then let's go grab four of their schools. And they did that. And now it's onboarding them. And now it's a matter of like, oh, my God, the ACC can be dying. Like, who can we pick from them? And totally understandable because Louisville makes a ton of sense as a Big 12 school, and any other combination that you want to throw together outside of Florida State's not coming to the Big 12. I don't even want to waste oxygen on that. Or Notre Dame, for that matter, is not coming to the Big 12. Yeah. But, any other combination, you could come up with a reason why that works. Yeah. Cal and Stanford are not coming to the Big 12, but anything else. But, all that being said, all that's fun. I do think, though, it is the offseason, and so that's why it's even more prevalent. I did see, what's his name from West Virginia came out of the woods while I was away.
MH Veer.
MH
Veer.
He's back. So it's definitely summertime realignment talk time. But I do think for the Big 12, it's not, I think, reasonable to expect that any conference, maybe outside of like the SEC, is going to be able to just be year-round news cycle from here to the end of time, even though that's what college sports has sort of become. So maybe that is just the way that it is to John's point moving forward. But I just think that at some point, you're going to have to generate excitement in different ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And not always have to go back to the realignment card. Because how many teams can you reasonably add before it's like, all right, we got to focus on who we have now and not who we could go get. And that's just a thought that came to me during the off week.
Part of the reason I think the ACC is having the trouble now is that they, even though they did, try to double down on football in the best way they knew how, they should have maybe been copying the moves of the SEC a little bit sooner than that.
And they were very prideful in being the hoops conference, which the Big 12 started to become, and then here was the messaging. Like Mac Rhodes on our show, like, hey, basketball is great, but we got to be good at football.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's where the decisions are made. And because if it was holistic athletic departments, if you were just looking at all athletic department things as to how to build a conference, there would be schools that are really good in one thing that you'd be like, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, UConn. Well, I mean, of course, they're a bad example because they're screwed in this, but like, hey, I'm sorry, Duke. Mm-hmm. I know that you're really good in basketball, but, being kind of good in everything else just isn't doing it for us. So that's not the game. The football is the game in this. And so if basketball had anything to do with it, Kansas would have been called before Texas and Oklahoma, right? I mean, they've been like, well, if we're trying to make basketball better, let's make sure we get Kansas. Like Kansas and Duke and Syracuse and all these basketball schools would be able to make their own power conference and move on. And that's not how it works. So yes, they've got to double down on football. The ACC, and also, especially I think it's where you can think about the fan bases in the SEC and the money that they were already spending towards football and the passion they had for it. And then the schools that are like the rivals in the other conferences, look, Georgia Tech can't spend as much as Georgia on this, but they are fan base wise, they're equally as passionate. They're just smaller. Right. Yeah. And so, it was just weird. And then you've got Florida State, who kind of stands out here in that they spend as much as everybody else in the SEC. They just don't make as much. They put all that effort into the football program, especially right now, but they're not going to get as much back. And that's where them and Clemson are like, hey, we have passionate fans. Like we should be involved in this, whether that makes sense or not. But the failing of the ACC holistically was not really making sure that when you got football teams that like everybody was on board with what they were dedicating to football. And I think there's obviously been a shift, and the SEC was so out front on all that of, look, football. We'll worry about everything else next. But when you get a school like Syracuse is like, listen, we've got Jim Boeheim, right? We've added Syracuse, the ACC. They've had a good football history. Jim Brown and Donovan McNabb, and they've got a good one. They'll figure it out eventually. Well, no. You need them to figure it out quickly now. Like that's where I think they went awry.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be good at basketball and have it help pay the light bill and maybe part of your car note, but it's not paying your mortgage. Football's paying the big bills. And so, yeah, I think that football remains king. That's pretty clear. And any alternate plans of somehow closing a gap of millions of dollars through strictly becoming, a great basketball conference is probably not the best plan or reasonable. And so I do think that it's all about winning in football. And I just think that, how many teams do you add before it just becomes silly of like, that can't be what you just get excited over every year of like, oh, we got more teams to add. I think it'd be great to have NC State. Don't get me wrong. Or somebody along those lines. Virginia Tech would be awesome. I think those schools would fit in really well in the Big 12. You're asking me like, what's your dream scenario? Like Virginia Tech's in the Big 12, Louisville's in the Big 12, and then we can have conversations about
Pitt, like if you had that, it would be Pitt and Virginia Tech. That would maybe like round out that 4 if you made it
Pitt
even.
would make some sense.
Duke
would make some sense, and not the best. Like the basketball stuff's important. I was just thinking over the course of the summer, and I know, or over the course of the last week, and I know this is very much summertime. This is just what we do in the summertime. But I just got to the point of like, at some point you can't add any more teams, and you just got to go out there and perform and be the best league possible. And so. How does the Big 12 go about doing that? I think they've got a lot of schools dedicated to football. The ones that are left over, I think, are all supremely dedicated to football. A lot of them are dedicated to basketball. We'll see on some of the newcomers, like the Pac schools. We know Utah is geared up and ready for football. The Arizona schools are finding their way a little bit in just the midst of some other storms. But I do think it all circles back to just winning, period. That's what's going to put you in a place that you're not currently, and it's not going to be a matter of like adding teams every summer to just keep surviving. Like, is it going to matter if you're $70 million behind, but you've got 32 teams and you're technically still alive? Like, you know what I mean? It's like this, at this point, you outlasted the Pac. Like, you beat them. Like, you beat them last summer. You can become the number 3 should the ACC fall apart. And I guess that's what everybody's sort of like now wanting to see, right? Is see the Big 12 win and become like the top of the outsiders, I guess. But I mean, that's cool, I guess, that you won the game of Survivor, but I don't know, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't turn into anything.
You gotta start winning.
You gotta win stuff. Like that's what I mean.
You gotta make sure that when somebody turns on Arizona State and West Virginia, that game is really good.
Right.
That when somebody turns on Baylor versus Colorado, that game is really, really good.
Like, it's cool you've got the Denver market, but it doesn't matter if Colorado sucks and nobody cares about the game.
Ask the Pac-12 how having Colorado worked out for them. Colorado was the first one to leave because it didn't work out for Colorado. And then the Pac-12's first response was, and this is when they still thought that they were going to be a league, was like, oh, did they leave? All right. Who cares? They were just 1-11. They were the worst team in the league. Like, oh, we lost the worst team that we had. They tried to create route like, oh, Colorado and Oregon, the battle over who's got the best weed, and then and then everybody's like, we want to win the game, but we don't really care. We have no feelings. We have no feelings towards each other either way. We'll play the game if you tell us to. Like, I'm sure it'll be fun, but I'm not going to build that up.
Right. I just think that you can balloon all you want to, but ultimately that's what it rolls back to is wins. So hopefully, I know the athletic directors and the presidents have their sights on that, but it's good to have something to chew on in the gaps in the calendar, and it's good to have some fire in the belly of your commissioner to go out and make you as strong of a conference as possible. But at some point, like, you just can't keep adding teams and adding teams and adding teams and adding teams, and that's all you're really kind of known for. And they're not in that territory just yet, but at some point, like, the gap's so wide that you're the you're the last one standing, but you're 75 miles away from where you were originally. You know what I mean? Where you were originally. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes you can get distracted by no, wait, look over here. It's like the temptation of adding all these schools is like, but that's not the main problem is the number of schools or the markets. Or it's like the problem's turning the on the field into the money. And so they're going to get more schools, it looks like, come hell or high water, sooner rather than later, although the timeline on sooner is debatable, and you can easily go to Twitter and find arguments over what sooner means, if it means a month from now or it means 11 months from now or whatever it means when it comes to the ACC. But, yeah, I just think the whole focal point for Brett Yormark and Linda Livingstone and whoever else with this conference is, be ready to scoop up whoever and to strengthen the conference. But you're going to have 24 teams. None of them are sniffing national championships. It doesn't matter how much of the map you're covering because it's not going to equate to what you need it to equate to, which is exposure, which is money, which is what's going to ultimately keep you at that level that you're accustomed to or that you want to be at or want to pretend to be at. So, I don't know. It all goes back to winning, but the expansion stuff is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's fun to speculate. It's fun to do those things. But, again, like it's easier when we can, talk games. As a matter of fact, it got I don't know if you noticed this, Garrett, but our Friday compilation show we did, because I had a wedding to go to, we decided that why don't we just take the segments of where the last couple weeks we've just been talking about ball. Like, even if it's like we're not talking about court cases, we're not talking about realignment, even if it's speculative on wins and, the PFF things that we've done and those kind of segments, let's put all that together and just go through and talk about the actual football. We did that for 3 hours on Friday. It got a ton of views because I think people want that more than,
I think there's a large audience out there that wants a lot of different things and that you can feed them like realignment, expansion, ball, recruiting, sports business. We've seen that become much of it. I mean, look at Jon Wilner, right? He's not just covering exclusively, the laces on the ball and, how many yards this guy got and all that. I mean, it's become quite the ecosystem, I think, over the last 2 or 3 years where there's room to discuss any number of topics. But I do think that we're in that sweet spot of where it's like dead as far as a lot of things go. But the stuff that's all the fun is like right around the corner. Like you can feel it. Media days are a month away. The SEC fears us, by the way. And so I think we're in that little pocket where we're almost there, guys. Like we're a few weeks away. But yeah, there's plenty of non-football stuff that I think, depending on who you are, you can get fatigued pretty easily by it, especially this last month. I mean, my gosh, that was nice this last week to just kind of take a break from it all. And then you sort of realize of like just how noisy it was and just how much craziness there was ongoing with these court cases and everything. So to take a step away did a bit of good. And now I'm fueled back up and ready to get back to settlements and yes, ball around the corner as well. Looking very much forward to that here in the next few weeks. But we won't be talking it in Dallas, apparently.
No. Did
y'all talk about that on the show?
No, I don't think we did. Did we, Garrett?
I don't believe so.
A little bit. We are at this point have been, and I don't want to I get it, it's big, but it's a huge, huge deal. If we were ever going to be able to get to SEC Media Days reasonably, it was going to be when it was 90 miles from us. So we applied, and we've never applied to Big 12 or SEC Media Days, mostly because, we have Big 12 Media Days right before it, and then we'd have to take a trip right after. Even before, when A&M went, Smokey and I even thought about, can we sneak out there for a couple days or send somebody and, do this whole thing about, A&M and the, Mizzou and right. Joining it. Should we do that? That was back in the radio station days. But the problem with that was, after that, we've got to get on a plane and go to Oxnard and go to the Cowboys, which we used to do all the time. So it just never fit. So we've never really been in the loop with the SEC. So we thought now, because we're growing and we're almost at keg stand levels, which would be 50,000. So we're almost there.
Yeah, get us over the hump to 50 and Paul to a keg stand, and then double that up 100K, and I'm tossing the hat to the side.
Yeah. So that's all. We're going well for us. Things are going great. You see, we have different sponsors up here every day. We've got more and more people interested in our show. I thought now's the time and strike where the iron's hot and see if the SEC will notice us. And the answer to that question is so far, no. They have said, but it's just emboldened us to continue to get bigger to where they can't say no anymore. And I understand everybody and their brother wants to go to SEC Media Days in our business, but we have a maybe unique opportunity to broadcast there and bring in a different part of an audience.
Maybe I'm different. I wasn't all that bummed out about it because, I mean, it's a cool thing, but I've been to enough Super Bowls and media days that, I don't think I was, missing out on, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It just made sense to be there because it's in Dallas. We had when I looked back, it was a couple months ago, I was like, I wonder if we've thought at all about going to SEC Media Days. And I didn't think about it again because it just wasn't on the forefront. And then we had somebody who randomly texted a few weeks back and was like, hey, I know y'all mostly cover the Big 12, but are you going to go to SEC Media Days? And I was like, that's right. I never brought that up. And then you filed for credentials. And then we got the letter back on, I guess it was for Thursday, saying that due to size limitations, there's not enough room, basically, is what we were told for us to be at SEC Media Days. So they couldn't squeeze 5 more people into their arrangement there at the Omni, even though it's a pretty roomy hotel, but I'll take their word for it. They're in Dallas for the first time. I'd imagine there's a gazillion local Texas TV affiliates that will be there, so I can see where room will get taken up pretty quickly. But I do wonder if it's maybe because I called Commissioner Greg Snakey a couple times, or
Kim Jong-Sankey,
or we basically have dogged him when others have touted him as this apostle of college football, and we've been cut the crap. No way. I think maybe that had something to do with it as well. I also think that, there's size limitations most likely, and maybe we just got in line too late to where they had a cutoff. But either way, I just found that funny. And my first thought wasn't, there's going to be a billion people there because now you've got all these A&M, all these UT media, which they're there's 1,000 of those people.
Yeah.
And all these Oklahoma, but there's 1,000 of those people too. So I could see where it got crowded, but it was just funny. And I was thinking, no, it's because I called him Greg Snakey. I think is because that's the real reason why. But I'm not. It would have been cool, but I don't think we're missing out on a once in a lifetime opportunity. So yeah, we'll see if there's another chance for that to happen. If they're in Houston or something that's reasonable, but no SEC media days. It looks like for us this summer.
There's 3 weeks
because they fear us.
Yeah.
Because Greg Snakey fears us being. No, I'm just kidding.
There are 3 weeks worth of triple options alone that I was. I don't think I said a nice thing about him.
Probably not.
He could be a match for a kidney transplant for me, and I'd be like, not his kidney.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't feel like I want that. Greg. So yeah,
right.
That's how mad I was.
That's the story I'm telling myself is that it wasn't because there was not room.
It's because he's noticed.
It's because he's noticed, and he's like, I'm not having those guys trash talk us, and they don't think we're the greatest thing since football was invented, and they don't fall in line with the rest of the SEC media.
Yeah, we're sometimes you see through a veil. And we see through the veil.
Sorry, Greg, let me talk like this. Does it feel better to you? Just kidding.
Yeah, we don't have a call-in show that just lets people. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think it would have been cool, but I think we'll be just fine driving our normal route to work for that entire week because 4 days is a lot. And I don't know if we would have gone 4 days, but that is a lot of media days.
It's a lot of media days. We have 2 in Vegas. We're so much because some of us, 4 of us that are going, were already there earlier this year, and I'm not even mad about the fact that as soon as media days are over, we're packing up and going to the airport. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing. So yeah, I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
we'll get our fill.
We'll get our fill really quick. It's a great appetizer city. It's a really great appetizer city. Not a full meal because you'll kill yourself. When we come back, Ryan Andrade of RotoWire joins us to talk about Dan Hurley telling the Lakers, "No, I'm good." That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke.
Welcome back. Our good friend Ryan Andrade from RotoWire.com. And Ryan, when you heard the news last, I guess it was Wednesday or Thursday, that Dan Hurley was going to go and interview at the Lakers, did you think he was gone?
Honestly, it took me a while to sort of process it because it seemed like it kind of just came out of nowhere. You know, I'm not super deep into the NBA, but last I heard was JJ Redick was their guy, and then the next week, they're wanting to talk to Dan Hurley about it. And I mean, listen, it made a lot of sense for them to at least try. You know, with how far that he has brought this UConn team in his 6 years that he's been there. The types of actions that he runs on offense, just his creative mind and intensity, made a lot of sense. But it definitely caught me off guard a little bit. And after processing a little bit, I just never really saw him leaving. I think I thought about it this way. I thought about it, if it's January 20th. And he's out here trying to coach LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they're not seeing eye to eye like that. That's one of those jobs that obviously there's a lot of pressure as a UConn coach, but that's one of those jobs that like you almost feel like a little bit powerless because LeBron and some of those veterans are going to do whatever they really want to do, and sometimes you're just there. You're just a scapegoat. I mean, that's kind of what Darvin Ham was, the last couple of years that he was there. So I thought it would have been a really big challenge. And, maybe he does make the trip to the NBA, a few years down the line. But, the opportunity to come back and try to go for a three-peat is, that was just too good to pass up, I think.
Ryan, there's been a lot of talk, especially in this era that we're in now, about the trials and tribulations of college coaching and just college athletics in general. A lot of talk about, coaches maybe getting tired of having to deal with NIL and recruiting and all these things, and that the pro job is actually less stressful and more relaxing at this point in time. But that wasn't, what Dan Hurley ultimately thought, or not what he wanted to pursue. How big of a win do you just think this is in some ways for college sports and college athletics to see a guy remain in a sport despite all the chaos and craziness that is being reported about it at the moment?
Yeah, I think honestly it is. I think you're right. I think it is harder being a college coach in this day and age with recruiting, whether that's high school recruiting, whether that's recruiting in the transfer portal, whether that's recruiting amongst your own players and trying to convince them to come back. It's a year-round job. There's no time to rest really. And maybe you can get away with that a little bit. The front office is sort of handling more of the player acquisitions and whatever you want to call it for the NBA or the NFL. But yeah, I think it's definitely a huge one for college basketball to have, a personality and, a guy like Dan Hurley come back, for, less money. I think it's especially big when you consider some of the names that have left college basketball in the last, 5-6 years. Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, that to lose another guy like that, college coaches are, the personalities with there being so much turnover with, freshmen leaving, transfer portal, teams don't look the same every year, but, the one thing that fans can, come back and look at is, the coaches are the same. And to have lost another guy like that would have really hurt, I think. But it's definitely a big win for, UConn, the Big East, and college basketball as a whole.
For college basketball as a whole, I mean, this is shaping up, and I know that the transfer portal is a gigantic headache, but with UConn, coming back and Dan Hurley being there to go for the three-peat, you've seen what Kansas and Kansas State and Baylor and Houston and Arizona have all done in the transfer portal in the Big 12 to make that league stronger. You've got shakeups across the SEC, especially massive ones with John Calipari going to Arkansas and Mark Pope taking his place at Kentucky. This might be the biggest buildup we've seen for a season in quite a while.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, there's just there's so many teams out there really, and this is the last COVID year, for college basketball as well, and college football obviously. So I thought it was always kind of weird, just having to figure out which guy has that extra COVID year and stuff when you're putting together projections and stuff for the upcoming season. But it's a good thing because college is keeping a lot more of their stars in the game now with NIL and transfer options, and especially in college basketball with the ability to test the NBA draft process. A lot of guys just do that, and I think there was like 80-90 guys that recently withdrew from that just to get some feedback heading into this season. So yeah, there's a lot of teams right there. Kansas, Alabama, I think are sort of the two teams neck and neck for that top spot. And then, you got as many as, 5 Big 12 teams that are in that, top 10 mix. I think, UConn is right there too with some of the guys they brought in, some of the guys they brought back. So, we are definitely set up for a fun year.
What do you think this means recruiting-wise for Dan Hurley, that he can now stand across and tell people you're better to me than LeBron James. I would rather be here than coaching the best basketball player of a generation.
Yeah, not only that, he turned down the opportunity to be the highest paid coach in college basketball at Kentucky. So, you got two sides that you can sort of stand on. Mm-hmm. And definitely. I think, maybe there were some questions a few years ago about, is UConn, one of the blue bloods, that kind of came, I mean, relatively speaking, in the history of the sport, they kind of came on later, but 6 titles in the last 25 years, I think it is just insane to think about with, how much parity there is in basketball these days. So, yeah, I mean, that's just, that's definitely, that UConn head coaching job is definitely right up there with, Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, Duke. It's got to be somewhere in that class. UCLA. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because I'm not necessarily sure that his classes over the last couple years, it hasn't quite been at the top tier like some of these other teams, but with the commitment he's made, and for guys to know that he's going to be there long term, definitely has to give them confidence, and especially when you see them, the way they play out on the court and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch this year.
I would think that he said he's interested in the NBA sometime in his future. It's not something he made a secret about. It wasn't something he made a secret about with his team when he went there to interview. He told them straight up and down, "I'm going to go talk to the Lakers and see what they have to say." I would say, though, the more fit for his coaching style and personality would be a young team on the rise, not the Lakers desperately trying to get one last title before their veterans all retire.
Yeah. No, that was my same thinking too. I mean, he's only 51. He's got if he wants to make that leap to the NBA, I think there's a path where he could do that eventually, and I think, quite honestly, there'd be a better fit. I don't necessarily think LA doesn't really scream Dan Hurley to me, to be honest. So definitely that I think would be interesting. I think if he could get a team that's young, that he can develop, that he has, not necessarily such a short leash like I think he would with, the Lakers, and him to expect to contend for a title right away. I don't think that's necessarily the best option for any, sort of college coach to make that type of leap. We've seen some in recent years that have had, not, the success rate from, college coaches going to the NBA hasn't been all that great over the last 20 years, I would say. So, I mean, maybe one day, I've heard that, obviously he was projected to be, I think, like top 5 or 6 in terms of, money per year. I think it was 6 years, 70 million, which, I mean, that sounds like a NFL safety or a linebacker or something like that. That just getting floated out there like that. But yeah, I mean, listen, that might be something that he wants to do down the road. But hey, if he stays in stores and he's winning 2 of the next 4, 5 years, winning titles, it'd be hard to leave for me too. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
What team do you think has done the best rebuilding their roster? And it's still not over. Coleman Hawkins could I mean, he's gonna change the atmosphere on that as well. Wherever he decides to go, there's still a couple. But which team do you think, now that the draft process is over, has really set themselves up well to surprise and make a jump?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to not say like a team like Arkansas or somebody like that. That's kind of an easy one, just because basically they took, the roster, a lot of the players from Kentucky and the recruiting class over there. So it's hard to not say someone like that. I think, obviously I'm a Kansas guy, so they had a lot of depth issues last season, and I think bringing over a guy like AJ Storr, Rylan Griffin from Alabama, which still shocks me that he decided to leave the Tide after making a Final Four appearance. But, he's there. They got some good bench pieces. There's a lot of team. Baylor is another one that I think did a really, really good job, bringing a experienced point guard like Jeremy Roach over. They got another good freshman class coming in, and there's a lot of depth on that team as well. So I think, I'm looking at a lot of teams in the Big 12 to really challenge for that. And, they've been sort of, a lot of people have gotten on the Big 12, I would say, over the last decade, because I think over that period of time, if you just go by like a site like KenPom or something, clearly they are the best, strongest conference. But a lot of people like to look at the results of, a single elimination tournament. And sometimes, they're getting one or two teams to the Elite Eight or something like that when people are expecting them to get like half of them. And that's not always just realistic. So I think, this year, given the teams that are there, the guys that came back, I would not be surprised at all to see, maybe a couple Big 12 teams make the Final Four this year.
Ryan Andrade of RotoWire. Ryan, you've got U.S. Open prep to do. I know. So I haven't even dived into it yet, but we'll talk to you again soon. Always love having you on, man, and talk to you again.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
Ryan Andrade of RotoWire.com. And yeah, it's we talked about it a little earlier in the show. And Craig, I do want to get your thoughts on the first two games of the NBA Finals. I know as a Mavericks fan.
When does that start?
I've been wondering.
Emery is so bitter about Oklahoma City not being in it that he won't even watch. He will check the box score just so he's not malinformed, but that's all he'll do. He does not want to watch one dribble, one shot, one foul, nothing. He doesn't want to see any of it. But I do think it's interesting that, it just, to me, if I'm Dan Hurley, like, my style is going to work best if I'm the coach of the Magic, who have a couple good players right now and are coming up, or the Knicks, that they're not trying to hold something together. And also, LeBron is coach killer. So
yeah, LeBron's a coach killer. I mean, I can still see the appeal, though. Obviously, wanting to coach one of the Mount Rushmore type guys.
Yeah.
I was going to say the GOAT, but I don't believe that he is.
Yeah.
So he's in the conversation, though, and for some people he is. But I mean, I totally get it from Dan Hurley's perspective. It's just you were looking at all that money being thrown at him, like $70 million, and the fact that it was pretty well established that he and UConn were working some things contractually, and that was not yet done, and then that just led to, like, wait a second, that's even more reason to believe that maybe the timing's right for him to leave. And obviously his wife, remember that part of this, having say in where they live. And I don't know, there's a lot of wives that maybe don't want to go live in Memphis, Tennessee, or I don't know, Atlanta or wherever, Charlotte, I don't know. But Los Angeles, when you got millions of dollars, is a different animal than Los Angeles if you're just like got thousands or hundreds of dollars, right? So I could see where, not knowing her whatsoever or knowing them, like maybe that's a pull. $70 million is a pull. LeBron James a pull. But you're going to make millions of dollars in Storrs, Connecticut. Maybe you like that better. Maybe it's more your speed. Maybe it's more your coast. And maybe you're, better dealing with, players at the college level right now for the time being than going to a Lakers franchise where LeBron's clearly on the downside of his career. And let's also not forget that, are you walking into a situation where you're basically going to be, like, told, like, hey, by the way, we're going to bring his kid on as well at some point, or we're going to try to, finagle that too. I don't know. They're just in a weird spot with, like, the Bronny stuff and LeBron's age, and I don't know. I can see why that would be such an appealing job, and yet also see why UConn back-to-back national championship head coach is a better job for right now for Dan Hurley than head coach Los Angeles Lakers, because we've seen guys chase titles and chase the big franchise and it not work out that well. So he could still very well end up there in a few years or end up somewhere just like that. I think the NBA is definitely in his future, the way that it was just sort of talked about in general. Like, there's clearly interest on his part, but yeah, the timing just not right now. But I think there's no doubt that Dan Hurley is going to be most likely coaching an NBA team at some point, just based on what we've seen here. Although that could be 7 years from now, and he's won 4 more national titles at UConn. But I think just in general, not being a Lakers fan, awesome. They're not going to ruin him, or he's not going to make them great. Either way, like, I feel great that he's either not going to make them great or they're not going to ruin Dan Hurley as a basketball coach. So I enjoy that as a non-Lakers fan. And I enjoy the fact that, UConn's going to be able to roll into this new era as stout as they possibly can be at the top with their men's and women's programs, which has always carried the water for them and will continue to. And we can debate on just how significant basketball will be, but basketball is the reason why UConn's attractive whatsoever to anybody. When you start talking about expansion candidates and who could join this league and who could join that, I maintain that at some point you got to get down to like what's on the field and not how many teams are in your conference, because you don't win trophies for that. But if you are still in that process of adding teams to your conference and getting to that final point, that's a school that's interesting to to have a discussion about, especially if you're a basketball-driven league like the Big 12 is. And all I could think of was, man, if he leaves before the news came out that he was staying, if he leaves of like, yeah, you still got Gino Auriemma there, but how much longer is he coaching? And what are the odds that UConn goes and hires another head coach that rolls in and keeps this thing strolling on along? So they were at a point where it's like, sure, you got women's basketball, but even that's kind of, in terms of natties, dried up recently. And that's, not going to be another 20 years of Gino. Yeah. So if you lose Dan Hurley, man, like you are in a bad spot at a bad time as an athletic program. And thankfully for the Huskies, they don't have to worry about that. They've still got their guy and they remain as strong as they were. But yeah, that feels like it would almost have been not a death sentence, because I don't know what their options are anyways, but like any amount of interest that you would have had in UConn, I think would have plummeted for at least the foreseeable future had Dan Hurley left.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we'll kind of run through a couple of things, Garrett, as the show winds down. But I do want your thoughts on the NBA Finals so far, Craig, and the fact that Kyrie Irving really, really must hate Boston a lot. Like being in Boston, it makes him clearly very uncomfortable. The mutual hate between the two parties.
I don't care what, he didn't step his game up.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want my thoughts now?
No, we'll get to that, but I want you to think about that. That part of it is very intriguing to me, because I think we've seen a new Kyrie a little bit, like maturity-wise, but still, there's a couple parts of it that the old you kind of follows you around a lot of places. That's when we come back. This is 365 Sports.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days, continuing at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco with some of the hottest deals of the year, starting with the new 2024 Dodge Hornet GT all-wheel drive for $29,999. Or how about the 2023, the new Dodge Charger SXT all-wheel drive for $30,990. And the 2023 Dodge Challenger GT at $31,487. How about the 2023 Dodge Charger SXT for $28,925 during Dodge Power Shot Days? If you like extreme, they've got extreme power with the Demon 170 with over 1,000 horsepower. Pop a wheelie straight from the manufacturer and also run on jet fuel. Allen Samuels has one of those last ones left in the country. Call it the last call model, as Dodge will not build the V8 Hemis in 2024. If you want cutting-edge technology, come by and drive the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4xe. Save over $13,000 in values. 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xe and save over $15,000 in values. These two world-class SUVs run on battery or gas with world-class technology. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340, east of 84 in Waco. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, entering the last week of the Jeep Celebration event with unbelievable deals like a 2023 Jeep Compass Trailhawk for $29,990, a 2023 Jeep Renegade. This is at Allen Samuels in Waco for $25,714. How about the most decorated SUV ever, a 2023 Grand Cherokee Summit with over $13,000 off MSRP. That's right, a 2023 Grand Cherokee Summit with over $13,000 off MSRP. The latest addition to the Dodge family, the 2023 Dodge Hornet GT, loaded up $37,525, all prices plus tax, title, and license. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager, he and his staff put together amazing values along with dealership brands as well. You have an opportunity to get the vehicle you want right now. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com with me, David Smoke. And tell you what, you guys keep rolling along. You do have yet another date, correct, for an online and live auction?
Yes, our next online and live auction will be Thursday, April 25th.
We've discussed how this has been unique and how people have reacted to it. Has that momentum continued as you've done more?
Yes, it's kind of half and half. We'll have a good amount of people there that are from the area, and then we have probably 40% that we ship out. And everybody that I've delivered locally to has talked about how much fun they had, and they want to know when the next one's going to be. We've gotten great feedback from the people that we've shipped to. They're all just so excited about this event, and they can't wait for the next one to happen.
Premium grade East Texas beef. Customers don't have to go out and buy their beef. TexasBeefHouse.com. From their family and their ranch to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke. We are in the midst of the NBA Finals, and Craig, as a Mavericks fan, I know the first two games, especially that first one, were not. I like that Luka Doncic last night was like, "Oh, well, this is all on me," and I'm like, "It's not really all on you." I would, if I'm listing blame, I'm not really talking to you here, but. The Celtics are such a deep team. It sucks for Dallas that Kristaps Porzingis hurt them when he was on their team, and now he hurts them when he's off their team.
That damn Tingus Pingus.
But, it's just like he was – I guess he didn't really hurt. Like, when he played, he was fine. It just never worked out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like Dallas, there's not like a big deal there with him in Dallas.
It's not like Kyrie in Boston where
absolutely
it
not.
Was totally – toxic and broken and shattered by the time he left.
Absolutely not. And it worked out better for Kristaps to move on eventually. I mean, to get ultimately to where he is now, he didn't go straight to Boston. But, I mean, I don't know how much of NBA fandom we have in our audience, but I'll touch on it real brief because I am a Mavs fan, and it's been very disappointing to get all hyped up about this run to the NBA Finals and feel like they've got a legit shot to win it, and especially just with the way that they were playing and the superstar that is Luka Doncic and the secondary superstar that is Kyrie Irving, and the way that relationship has blossomed, and Kyrie's not been an issue, but instead turned into or slowly evolved and matured into like this great guy that you can actually really embrace being on your team rather than being worried about him tearing it apart from the insides, like he was known for in Boston, just being a bit of a problem child, and then Brooklyn as well. All that was a lot of fun, and then they ran into the Celtics, and my confidence level dropped dramatically after game one, not because they lost in Boston, but just because of the way that they lost. And, yeah, unfortunately right now it's basically a one-man show, and Luka Doncic trying to make up for the fact that Kyrie Irving's not playing like a superstar or carrying his weight, nor is it all on him either. The rest of the team appears at times to be bothered by the bright lights of the NBA Finals. They have young guys. I mean, a Derek Lively, as much as he was a story throughout the year, especially at the end for how great he is as a rookie, he's still a rookie, right? He's still a young guy, and the Celtics have a lot of veterans. They have a lot of great players. I heard this argument made countless times in the lead up to this, is you can argue that the Mavs have, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, you can make the case or the argument of the Mavs have like 2 of the 4 best players in the series, but then like 5 through 10 or 5 through 8 are all Celtics.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got 2 of the best out of the top 8, and they've got like the other 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it was portrayed, and maybe it's 5, right? But you get the point there, and I do think that that's true. I think that Boston's just a clearly more talented, more seasoned, just better team overall through these first 2 games, and just in general, they've appeared that way. So, yeah, it's an uphill battle. You lost 2 games on the road, though, so it's not like the end of the world. But the problem is last night, that was a game that you could have won. Mm-hmm. Not in game 1. You weren't going to win game 1. That was very clear very early that was not going to be in the cards for you. But you had a chance to win that game last night if Luka gets a little bit of help. And you let one get away potentially, and I don't know that you're going to get another one close like that. So we'll see. They'll go to Dallas. You obviously have to win game 3 or this is over. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not going to win 4 straight games. It's just not going to happen. It's never happened. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they got to win this next one, but I'm not feeling great about it. I think they just ran into a team that's better than them. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. I wasn't expecting them to be in the NBA Finals this year. I'm not also going to be a fan that, like, I start to talk myself into feeling – it sucks. Like, you get all the way to the finals, you want to win. Like, I don't think Falcons fans celebrate getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You celebrate Super Bowls. So I don't want to hear about this many finals. That doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
What matters is getting there and winning it. So if they fall short like they look like they probably will, that'll be disappointing. And then it becomes a real curiosity of how they get good enough to do that, like what they would be able to do to add on, change what they currently have, because they got a great team still. Like, I don't want them getting beat up by a really good Celtics team make you think of, like, they got to tear it up. No, they're in the finals, but
they need maybe more. See, some of those guys, like Lively, will be better next year.
I think the lights are too bright is a big problem.
Yeah.
And then Kyrie just not being, like, the level of superstar he needs to be in this series. He needs to be going, like, bucket for bucket with guys, and he's not doing that right now. So, yeah, Luka's fantastic. I think everybody knew that, and if you didn't, then, like, it's become clear how great he is. He is great, all caps, but he doesn't have enough help right now.
No,
and they are wearing him down too. They're having him run around, and he's a little chubby boy. He can play some defense, but he's not trying to play it like whistle to whistle the whole night. And they're exhausting him, and then it's making everything harder.
Yeah, he's also banged up a little bit. Although last night you wouldn't have noticed the way he was scoring. He was doing great. But with Kyrie, and I think this is true. Like, say what you will about his maturation and how he's different now, and how he's grown. Like, Adam Silver, like, I think deserves a lot of credit for the rejuvenation of Kyrie Irving into being an effective NBA player again, as opposed to a guy who can score a little bit but can't get out of his own way because of flat earth or anti-vaxxing or anything like that. Like, he was so committed to being Kyrie, the I'm going to go against the grain guy. I'm going to be this malcontent or this this voice for this thing that he got way too out over his skis, and he wasn't a very he was still a great basketball player, but it wasn't helping anybody, right? And nowhere was that probably worse for Kyrie than it was in Boston, where it got really, really bad. And so I think it's human nature to, when you go back to a place where things were so bad, he's got some probably unresolved feelings about all that. And then walking into a place that every time he, touches the ball, commits a foul, commits a turnover, is getting just soundly roasted by everyone in the building. Look, I think it certainly did have an effect on him. I think it did. We'll see what happens when he's back in the friendly confines of the AAC, where he's played really, really well. But I think that's a huge part of it. They need Kyrie to be Kyrie and not the shell of himself that he was in the first 2 games, where he could not make anything. The bad news for the Mavericks, in addition to that, is that we haven't seen Jason Tatum have an elite offensive game yet, and they've still won both games comfortably. I mean, less comfortably last night, but, down the stretch of the last minute and a half, it was over.
Mavs had a window, and they let it go, and then the Celtics extended the lead again.
Yeah, but Jason Tatum hasn't had his best game yet. Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown and Porzingis have been kind of driving the offense, and Jason Tatum had a great game in every other aspect last night, but wasn't hitting shots at the way that he can. And so that if that happens, then I just have a hard time seeing the Mavs claw back from that too, especially if Brown and Holiday and Porzingis stay at the level they've been at. And Derek White is, and I'm a Spurs fan. The player in the last few years that wasn't one of the triplets that I think I would help them the most right now, given how he's kind of taken that Popovich style and the adds that he's so damn good at every little, at all the little things. Derek White is. He's that, Robert Horry, Horace Grant, just clean up the mess dude that Derek White is. And so their starting five is just lethal.
Oh, yeah, they're a really good team, man, and plenty of people had them winning this series. The Mavs came in hot and looked like they were on a little bit of a roll, and I certainly felt like they were rolling in, feeling pretty good, but I also knew Boston's a really good team. So like I said earlier with the whole argument about, well, the Mavs have two of the best players in this series, but they've got two of the 8. The Celtics have the other 6. I mean, you just listed off all the rest of the guys, and then Pingus comes back, and, he's balling in game 1, and I know he got hurt, but he looks like he's going to be okay, I think. And, I mean, shoot, they could rest him game 3 and be okay probably. I mean, they got a 2-0 lead now, but, yeah, it's disappointing. Kyrie has shrunk in the spotlight, and that's been unfortunate to see because you're hoping it would be the exact opposite, that he'd be driven by all that hatred in Boston. But, he's a guy, though, that he wasn't doing crazy stuff before this. He was having good little surges in the second half late, and it made his box score look great, and it was great to finish off games, but it wasn't like he was dominating for 4 quarters. So he's kind of been in a weird space as far as, how productive he's been, scoring points and things like that. But yeah, he's completely shriveled up now, and so that's definitely concerning. And I don't know if you can flip that switch. I know he was motioning for the game 5 will be back in Boston, which means you got to win at least one game. So I think they can take one in Dallas. I don't think that they'll get swept, but at this point, I don't have any illusions that they're gonna come back and win 4 out of the next 5 games. I don't see that happening. So I don't know. It'd be great to be wrong on that. I'd love to be wrong on that. But the Boston Celtics are a really good basketball team. So if no shame in losing to them. It'd be one thing if you were massive favorites and you were just underperforming, but it's you came in as underdogs in a lot of people's eyes anyways. And you certainly haven't played well enough to deserve anything other than being down 2-0. So play better and see what happens. But if you don't, then it's going to be a quick series.
Absolutely. When we come back, let's talk SEC win totals based on a treasure trove of information sent to us from BetOnline. I mean, they sent us an email that has more stuff in it. I couldn't Smokey's going to print the thing out and raise his carbon footprint already higher than it already is. But we're going to do the SEC when we come back. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Heading Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke.
Welcome back.
By the way, I do want to add, we got a little bit of news here in this last few minutes on Baylor football. I just wanted to mention, it's the good folks over at Richard Carr, that Bowles School out of Jacksonville, Florida, wide receiver Chase Collier has committed to Baylor. So commit number 9 for the 2025 class, Jacksonville, Florida wide receiver Chase Collier, and I'll do the Bearcast with Grayson tomorrow, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about that. But I know it seems to be a nice addition for Dave Aranda and company. It's hard to get super excited about a high school class when you're like, well, all that's going to hinge on how he does this next year, but you still got to put the work in and get that going. So if they have a big year, they go sign Chase Collier and all these other guys. But notable that came across, so I just wanted to make mention of that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, some other news about college baseball. But I do want to ask you a quick trivia question about Jacksonville Bulls. Okay. Most famous athlete to come out of Jacksonville Bulls?
Tim Tebow.
Okay, he was not the one I was looking for. I was going to say Chipper Jones.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it was he Bulls? Was Tebow Bulls?
I don't think he was.
I know Chipper Jones was Jacksonville Bulls.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's who I always think of when I think of Jacksonville Bulls.
Yeah, I don't think that Tebow went to Jacksonville. No, he went to Nice.
Yeah.
So I was wrong anyways. But Chipper Jones, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty hard one to top, that's for sure.
Yeah. They had some.
Hopefully Chase Collier's as good as Chipper Jones was at his job. That'd be great for Baylor football.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, betonline.com. Hold on, let me get to the other news because I want to hear Garrett's reaction to this. Garrett, who is the current LSU baseball coach?
That would be Jay Johnson.
Jay Johnson. He's doing a good job.
They're pretty good. Got a natty. Yep.
The guy who led them to the 2009 national championship is Paul Mainieri.
Mm-hmm.
He is now going to be the baseball coach at South Carolina.
This makes no sense to me. Like,
I thought he was retired.
I thought he was retired too.
Yeah.
And the way he put the roster together and he hands it over to Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson adds Paul Skeens and then we gets the natty. But the way everything went the year before, you thought Paul Mainieri was kind of like riding off into the sunset there. But so this one's kind of caught me out of nowhere. It makes sense though because we see all the money going into the SEC that. You're seeing what's happening right now with SEC baseball. You see Georgia having a run, buying players and everything. It only makes sense that a school is going to come after him. And, of course, it's a school in the SEC, and I'm not going to be surprised if he goes there and has a lot of success, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were caught off guard by this based on what I saw, the initial reaction.
It was like somebody with a fake Kendall Rogers account first.
I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. And then I looked. I was like, no, it's Kendall
Rogers.
Real.
Yeah, he's coming out of retirement, a very brief retirement. But I think that despite the fact that he originally left LSU, he's in his mid-60s, so he's getting up there. Still got some gas left in the tank, but he had health issues. That was the other part of it. So I guess that's not much of a concern anymore. And I think Garrett nailed it. I think there's so much money flowing in baseball now in the SEC that had to be part of the allure is, all the scholarship limitations and things that you used to have to worry about. Like, we're pretty much going to be free and open and easy with everything, and you can do whatever you want. And I'm sure South Carolina put a big, package together to lure him out of retirement as well. And yeah, I think that speaks to the landscape and the ability to come in a new era of college baseball where the scholarships are not such limitations and the NIL money is flowing freely, and you can put together a pretty competitive team, and you can also be in a very competitive league where there's going to be a lot of teams that are, I was going to say juiced up, probably not the best when talking baseball, but filled to the gills with money to throw around and to put teams together. So, in a great atmosphere now, adding Oklahoma and Texas to the mix as well. So I can see where all those things would be appealing to make the call if you're feeling good.
Well, Dennis Dodd wrote about this in the wake of the House versus NCAA and new scholarship limits and roster limits coming. He said, expect the SEC, like their next project will be to double down on baseball because they're already, as you see, most like two conferences are going to be the whole Omaha field, and they're going to double down on baseball. Like that's the next thing they have to conquer, and they don't really even have to, change much of what they're doing. They'll just be able to capitalize on it already, right. So they're going to double down on it because they're already great at it, and
yeah, I mean, they're really good and have a bunch of shots to win a national championship now. So we'll see if they, in fact, close the job there.
I mean, they really don't. I mean,
sure. Now, the ACC will have something to say about it, but no, I mean, they're going to have multiple cracks at it. And, they're in a spot now where they kind of have a stranglehold, not all by their lonesome, but they have a pretty good grip. Let's say that, not a stranglehold, pretty good grip on the sport of baseball right now. You had Oklahoma and Texas in softball. And, I think the next thing you start to track is like, all right, basketball, how do we get to be the best there? And, I'm sure NIL will come into play with that, especially when you're going to have, 20 million more, 40 million more, whatever to play around with. That's going to leak everywhere. So I don't know that I care about a college sports landscape where one league like dominates everything.
Yeah.
Especially a league that I'm not even a fan of. Although as an Oklahoma fan, I guess I'm going to start being that to some extent, but you're never going to hear me chanting the SEC I'm never going to do that.
I will never understand it because
that's what I talked about earlier with all this conference pride stuff. Like that's what everybody's gone from making fun of how goofy that all was and Paul Feinbaum and all this propaganda to basically embracing it and, wanting to do the same thing where it's like drawing lines in the conference sand now. And I'm trying to avoid that if at all possible.
Yeah. No, it's eventually you say something long enough and people start to believe it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened. Whether it's, and look, there's certainly data to back it up, but also it's true that the league is better in football than everybody else. Like they've been better. They've been more successful. That's true. The fact is, I don't understand. What I don't get about it is if I'm a fan of Alabama, I don't want Georgia to win. I don't want Florida to win. I don't want Tennessee to win. Like, I'm fine if the conference is strong if we need to be, but I'm not going to brag about something that someone else does.
Right.
That's where it gets me.
I never rooted for, like, the Astros, AL West, baby.
Yeah.
AL West or NFC East. Like, I think you took pride in the NFC East back in the day being the best or the toughest division, but that's where it stopped.
The pride was that your team won it.
Right,
Not
right,
that,
exactly.
like,
you finished, you're in it. You're just in it.
Yeah. Look, when the Giants, won the Super Bowl, I wasn't like, they beat the Cowboys on the way. Way to go. Good job, Giants. I was like, Giants, man.
I just think that's what realignment this last phase has created because it's been a survival game. So now it's like you had to draw the line in the sand, like your team Big 12 or your team Pac 12, right?
Yeah.
And like who wins the war? And even though the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten were all like sitting there with their swords like in the darkness as well. And so I think it's created that, which I think is fun, and it's great for the Big 12. Like, it's, I think, brought a lot of fans together, but I also think that can be kind of like a fine line where it gets a little silly.
Yeah.
And now it's like everything's like death or, and it's like not everything has to be like all in all the time. Like, I don't know, the end of the world.
What did it was a line from Ferris Bueller where he was like, I don't believe in communism or anyism for that matter. He's like, I believe it was Jon Wilner said, I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me. Yeah. And like, the fact that I know that line so well tells you a lot about my youth, but I can tell you, I very much believe it in that, like, believe in yourself, like hold yourself to things, like the team that you like, but I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me. I really, isms kind of get you in trouble.
Yeah, they can.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like, so SEC-ism to this point, I know because I spent a lot of time in Nashville now. I have a comedian friend who went to Vanderbilt. Every time I've ever texted him and like, hey man, talk to you later, he writes "suck it Vols." Like, that's what he says.
It's just different out there, man. This is a different breed.
But he has no, like, he's not one of these dudes who's like, yay, Tennessee's good again. That's good for us. No, it's not. It's not. Only in the fact that you're getting this money, which, again, none of you will ever see. It's not like if Tennessee wins the national title, they're going to walk through the stands going, here's your share, thanks for yelling. No, they're just going to ask you for more money. So it's just dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb. But speaking of that conference and how dumb it is, we've got over-under win totals from BetOnline for every single conference. We could even do this for the AAC if we wanted, or the Big Sky, which I don't think we will do because it would be kind of disingenuous to us be talking about the Big Sky going, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much of an investment there,
No, it would be one of those things that we're just, look how much we know about football. Yeah,
I mean that's great for the sicko. I'm just not going to pretend like I ever paid much attention to the Big Sky, and I know what I don't. I think I said this during the commercial break conversation. I don't BS, so like I'm not going to pretend to BS on the Big Sky. If I knew about it, I'd love to talk about them, but I'm not going to pretend right now like that's a conversation I could have and not be just totally BSing everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. No, again, like I said, it would be disingenuous to have to do something, but we do know the Power Four pretty well, and I would say we probably could do this for the AAC because we know that one. Fair enough. But SEC, this year listed in alphabetical order. And Craig, just tell me what you buy on this or over under. 9.5 for Bama.
Shoot, year one with DeBoer, huh? 9.5 right out of the gates. Am I supposed to say over under here on this?
Under.
Oh, okay. See, this is the part where, not to make excuses, but this is the part where I don't know the schedules off the top of my head, whereas much more prepared people have said, you know what, I see 3 losses in their schedule. I'm going to say it's a 9-3. Man, do you have a gut feel on it?
I look, without, like, and I have looked at their schedule.
See, you should have gone first. That's a big deal. Okay. That's a big part of this whole thing.
I have looked at their schedule. But I do see 9-3 being realistic for them because they're dealing with a huge shift in who they are.
Right.
And they're dealing with something that they haven't had to deal with in that those guys who were, staying at Alabama because they got to play for Nick Saban, those that Alabama might have been their second choice, but Nick Saban was their first choice. And their first choice might have been FSU or Miami or Georgia, or I guess maybe not Georgia, it's not a good, but like somewhere else where they were going to play a lot sooner, those guys left in a larger chunk than they have in the past. As opposed to the guys who couldn't cut it, they lost a lot of guys who would have been playing this year for them, who just decided, well, Nick Saban's not here, I'm going to go to the other place. So I think that leads to 9-3 because they're not used to this kind of shift, but I don't think it's going to be a 9-3 where you're like, oh man, this is bad. It's just probably normal. Like,
yeah, I'll go under on that. I'll go 9-3 is about where they fall. I think anything less than that would obviously be immensely disappointing. I mean, if you lose 4 games, even though 8-4 would be good for a lot of first-year head coaches, that is not good enough at Bama. But you do have Georgia on the schedule. You do have, I think just a lot of games that are coin flips right now, not really knowing much about what Bama's going to look like in their first year. So yeah, I'll go under 9.5 on Alabama.
Arkansas.
Paul, I tell you what, don't know what he's talking about, but I don't care. Fight me.
Who is it? I don't give a piss about anybody but Georgia. Is that the one?
I believe, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I respect that. He's not chanting SEC. He's just like, I don't care about anybody but Georgia.
Yeah, that guy.
Amen, brother.
Absolutely. They've started using him for like social media videos.
Oh, really?
Lean into it, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Arkansas, 4.5. I'll take the under here. I'll take the under.
That's where we are. 4.5 is your over-under. Yeah. I'm not even going to waste the time looking at the schedule. If I had to bet on that, I'd probably say under, on Arkansas. There's just not a lot of momentum there with them right now, and it just feels like they're at that point where now you're like Oklahoma and Texas showed up, and they're already shoving you behind them in line, and I don't think I think it's great for them from a ticket selling standpoint.
Yeah.
But every other way, I don't think it's all that great for them
No.
and at this time. So, yeah, I'll go under on Arkansas at 4.5.
Yeah, we get to hear that whole Richard Nixon story again every year. That he went to that game.
What's that story?
The game of the century.
Yeah.
It was so big, even Richard Nixon was there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Auburn at 7.5. This one I've struggled with. I think Hugh Freeze will have them better, than they were. I just don't know how good their quarterback play is going to be, and they did not really get in the portal market for that position. They did for a lot of other things, but not for quarterback. So given the fact that they're in the SEC, I think there's a great shot that they start out 4-0 because they play Alabama, A&M, Cal, New Mexico, and Arkansas. But then after that, it's Oklahoma, Georgia, Mizzou, Kentucky back-to-back, and they could be 4-4 after that. Yeah. After that stretch. And
so
then
what's their number?
They're at 7.5.
Damn. Vegas knows how to just snip that right perfect place. So what did you have them as?
I'm going to say under because I think also A&M towards the end of the year is going to be a toss-up, and at Alabama, it's not a game I don't think they're going to win.
They're going to have to win one flip game, which is why they're at 7.5. And so I'd say under on that right now. I feel better about them at 7 than I do at 8.
Yeah. Okay. And next up, this one, these poor bastards. Florida, 4.5. I'll say under at 4. I really think that they're going to have a very rough year. Their schedule is brutal. It is so brutal. And they don't get, it's not broken up in a way that, okay, we took a tough loss. We've got back on a team that we can be on equal footing with. The last stretch of that is just so ridiculously brutal. And I think there's a good chance that, Miami's probably, in my opinion, going to beat them at the beginning of the year. I think there's a great chance that UCF beats them. And then if those two things happen, then I don't think that before you even get the SEC, Billy Napier's a dead man walking. So I see 4-8 as a very real possibility.
Yeah, they're only giving me a Sanford, and beyond that, they have coin flips or outright underdogs, I think, the rest of the way. So, yeah, I'd go under on that as well. It's hard to see them scraping together 5 wins. You'd have to win, the Miami game out of the gates, beat UCF, and, really hit some of those maybes right out of the gates to build some momentum up, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And even if they do, they could start off relatively well, given that's a tough non-conference, but still find themselves flailing in the SEC. So yeah, not a lot of momentum for them, and it's not like they missed out on a lot of the easier. They don't have Vanderbilt. I know we always pick on them, but Mississippi State's as close as it gets to maybe feeling great about a game, but you don't feel great about Georgia. You don't feel great about Texas. You don't feel great about LSU. You don't feel great about Ole Miss. You don't feel great about FSU at the end of the year. You don't feel great about Tennessee. You don't feel great about, A&M's kind of a question mark, but I wouldn't say that you'd be favored over them. So, yeah, I'd go under on Florida.
Yeah, I'm going to go under. That's just I wonder how I'm going to feel watching Texas and Florida play
I think it's going to be really cool.
It's going to be
see
cool,
them play.
But like, I wonder how I know how I felt in the College World Series where I did dry heave for a solid hour. So I don't know.
It's like staring in the mirror at each other. Those two show up.
Yeah.
So you're the Florida version of me. You're the Texas version of me in some ways. But yeah, I think that's one of those rivalries we've never really seen before.
I don't think they've ever played in football. I think
they don't. Yeah. They have not, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I looked that up a long time ago, but I think that's one of those benefits that you don't think about initially. You think about the SEC and Texas, Oklahoma, you're like, okay, we get Texas and Oklahoma, and what a great game that is. Oh, we get Texas and Arkansas, and we get Oklahoma, Missouri, and we get Texas and Texas A&M, obviously. But, yeah, how about, like, the newer ones, like Texas, Florida, or, Oklahoma versus Georgia or something like that. Like, that's where I think you can also really have some cool stuff happen with all this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Georgia, 10.5.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
Yeah,
I'll take the over.
I don't even need to look at the schedule because I mean, they're stacked. They should be really, really good. And I understand if the end of the season schedule had like all the 5 best SEC teams lined up in a row, it's still freaking Georgia, buddy. Like you're still going to pick them in most of those games.
Their schedule is harder than it was last year,
which was a total nothing last year.
But this year they open up in Atlanta against Clemson, and that will be a tough game. That will be the Dabo tries to prove he's right game.
Yeah,
and could set Clemson on a heck of a track if they do win it. At Kentucky, that's going to be interesting. But still, I'm not expecting anything there. At Bama, that'll be tough. At Texas, that'll be tough. Then at Ole Miss, tough. Tennessee, tough. But I mean. They're going
to be favored in almost every, if not every game. I mean, even with Alabama.
The only one I don't see them being favored in
Texas
is at Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, even at Ole Miss, especially if they beat Texas, they'll be favored in that game no matter what Ole Miss's record is at the time.
I think anything less than that would be disappointing to the fans. So, I'd say over for Georgia for sure.
Yeah. All right, next up is Kentucky at 6.5.
What does their schedule look like?
Their schedule, Southern Miss, South Carolina, Georgia, Ohio at Ole Miss, Vandy at Florida, Auburn at Tennessee, Murray State at Texas, and then Louisville.
I'll say go over, yeah.
I'll go over at 7.
I'll say go over.
I'll give them 7. Yeah, I think
they can win 7 ball games.
Yeah, I think they win 7. I'll go over there. LSU, 9.5. Garrett?
Better be. Let's see.
Be 11.5 if it was up to me.
They should be 5-0 out the gate, honestly. I think they get beat by Ole Miss.
LSU USC is going to be really interesting.
It really is.
In that first week.
I'm not sure what to make of that one. I just don't trust Lincoln Riley, honestly. I think they get beat pretty bad by Ole Miss.
That game will be at night, though. I'll tell you that right now.
What was the game? What was the number? 7?
Yeah.
I'll take over.
No, 9.5.
9.5?
A big difference.
It was a 7.5. Hold on.
Difference.
I'll take under. I'll give them 9.
It was 9.5.
Oh, I'm going to go under on that.
Yeah, I'm going to go under with Ole Miss, A&M, which has become a surprisingly good game no matter what happens. Alabama and Oklahoma on the schedule, USC.
I think there's a lot of
they play UCLA as well.
Yeah, they play both the Big Ten LA schools in the first month, so that ought to be. But UCLA, the first-year head coach too, so there's some change there. USC, no Caleb Williams, big change there. That first month, I think, will kind of be the telltale. Whatever they come out of that as, I think that'll be the big telltale. But, yeah, having the questions that we have currently, losing what you lost, I think you got to go under for right now.
Yeah. Mississippi State at 4.5 with former Baylor linchpins Jeff Lebby at head coach and Blake Shapen at quarterback.
I almost forget that Blake Shapen's there. I'm excited for him to see what he can do.
Yeah. Their schedule's the Eastern Kentucky Colonels, at Arizona State, Toledo, Florida, at Texas, at Georgia, A&M, Arkansas, UMass, at Tennessee, Mizzou, at Ole Miss.
Damn. I'm going over.
I'm going to say over.
Yeah, I'm going over.
I mean, look.
5 games, 5 wins. I think they can get 5 wins out of that.
Okay. Can they beat Eastern Kentucky, Arizona State, Toledo and Florida, they could be 4-0
right, yeah.
to start off the season. Now, say they do lose to Florida, although that game is at home, you still have games against UMass, Arkansas. I mean, like, there's 5 wins on that schedule to me. There's 5.
If I had to put my money down on this, which is what I'm basing this off of, then yeah, I'd go over on that. I don't feel great about it, but I feel better about going over than under on it.
To go to 5, I mean, the over's 5. The over's not like 4. Like, you have to get, if they don't get 4.5, they have to get 11. No, it's 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that
Toledo and UMass and Eastern Kentucky and Arizona State. Although, hey, who knows? Sun Devils forks up. Maybe they go out there and get a big win over. That's the kind of thing too. I was talking about earlier with the Big 12 and like the expansion stuff is fun, but like ultimately, like who cares if you have all the coast if nobody wins anything worth the S? Like you need Arizona State to go beat Mississippi State.
Yeah,
that's what you need. You need those non-con wins. You need somebody to jump up and beat teams like that. That's what you need more than a 20th school. To what I was saying earlier, but that's an interesting schedule. I'd go over for Mississippi State.
Yeah. Mizzou at 9.5. Their schedule, Murray State. Got a couple of SEC games, does Murray State. Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt. So 4-0. At A&M, at UMass. So there's a 5th win. Auburn, at Bama.
I want to hear Jack about
Oklahoma,
this. Okay.
At South Carolina, at Mississippi State, Arkansas.
Over. They drew the easiest ass schedule out of you could possibly. I know. Well, we go to Alabama. Like, okay, that's great, but man, I don't know how you could have drawn it up any better.
No,
you get your new rival in Oklahoma, who the heck knows? And I'm an Oklahoma fan. I mean, I think they'll be pretty good, but you get them at home. So yeah, I'm going over on that for Missouri, especially fresh off last year. You got your main tools back.
All they have to do to go over is one of the 3 of at A&M, at Bama, and Oklahoma. Like, I have to win one of those 3, which I would think they're better than A&M. Even going to Kyle Field, they're better than A&M right now.
Yeah.
Like,
on paper, yeah.
Yeah,
on paper, they might be better than Oklahoma. I mean, they get to make an argument for it. They had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
And if there is such an adjustment as people expect there to be, and maybe not. I've said this before. I start talking down about Oklahoma, and it's like, I don't think the sky is falling. I'm not there. I don't think they're going to only win like 7 games a year from now on. They're still Oklahoma. But
you'll get to talk about them in just a second.
No, I will. But, I'm also realistic of they're not just going to roll in and be 10-2 necessarily. So, yeah, I think Mizzou's capable of feeling good about that game and a lot of others on the schedule. So, yeah, I'd definitely go over for Missouri.
Oklahoma would love to switch schedules with them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because
for sure.
They open up with Temple. Then they have Houston and then Tulane. Houston and Tulane are teams that can, they're not going to lose those games, I don't think. No. But, it's not.
I mean, Tulane hired a really good replacement for Willie Fritz, but they still shouldn't be losing to Tulane.
No, but Tennessee, first 4 games are at home. And their first SEC game is at home against Tennessee. Again, that would be tough.
Sure.
And at Auburn, by the way, they were 7.5. I didn't tell.
7.5 for Oklahoma? Okay.
Yeah. Then Texas at the Cotton Bowl. South Carolina at Ole Miss. That's going to be really tough. The Maine Black Bears sneak in there on November 2nd. So
those late. That's such BS, man.
It really is.
Everything is just like, well, the reasoning that our schedules are tougher. You play one less conference game. You have a gimme late in the year to basically get a freshener in the late part of the year when everybody else is like grinding through their conference. They really just brainwashed everybody, dude. It's amazing. And we just all follow along with it. Like,
here's the thing.
It'd be one thing if you had one or the other, but you have like multiple things that all play into your favor.
And they've brainwashed everybody so much that even their TV partner, ESPN, is like, oh, man, November 2nd?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh. But the thing is, like, you got Oklahoma, so there's a guaranteed million people that are going to watch that game.
Yeah, whatever, do whatever you want.
But I think the combination of those factors is just like, all right, one or the other, but don't like add them all up together, because then you have like a pretty distinct advantage when you're playing a less conference game and you're playing a gimme late in the year. But regardless, we're not trying to get on a tangent here. So Oklahoma at 7.5.
But their last 4 of their last 5. No disrespect
really
to the Maine Black Bears. Stephen King's favorite school, I'm sure. But at Ole Miss, at Mizzou, Bama, and at LSU, around all that, that's going to be where you see who they are.
Yeah, that's gonna be crunch time for them for sure. So I'd say over on that. I think they can go 8-4 with this schedule. I feel good about that. I think they go 7-5. Then there's gonna be some real heat on Brent Venables. I don't care if it's the first year in the conference. I don't care if it's the SEC schedule. 7-5 is not good by any measurement. So that would mean like something significant had to help create that, not just a full 100% strength Oklahoma team lost 5 games just because like that to me would be a hard pill to swallow, and I think it would be for a lot of the fans. So yeah, I'm and not because that am I saying they're going to win because that people don't feel bad, but I think they're good enough to go 8-4.
I agree with you. I'll go over.
Yeah.
I'll go over.
But what games are kind of the tipping points will be very interesting, man, when they have to go through that run, especially in November.
Again, 8-4 is because they won. You know, they beat somebody like Ole Miss or LSU or someone like that, or Alabama.
Those last 3, baby, at Mizzou, home against Bama, at LSU. I mean, that's their last. I guess Maine starts off that month, but that's their last 3 weeks. That's going to be. Crazy.
That's your welcome to the show. All right, we'll kind of rapid fire through a couple of these. Ole Miss is 9.5. In their schedule, Furman, Middle Tennessee, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, at South Carolina, before they get to at LSU. So there's a good chance before their bye week that they're already most of the way there.
At 9.5?
Yeah. And then at LSU, Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Georgia at home, at Florida, Mississippi State. Yes, I'll take 10-2 from that team. And it better be given what they've tried to do.
Yeah, given what they've tried to do, like I think you have to go over. Yeah, if they are what they've recruited and bought and what have you, then yeah, they should win 10 games. So I would say over, but I don't know, man.
It's tough.
It's right. It's right there on the line for a reason. That's why it's exactly where it's supposed to be to make me go, wow, that's a really good spot for that to be. Because I could have said 9 or 10, but I'll go 10 for Ole Miss. I don't feel great about that though.
Yeah. Next up, South Carolina at 5.5. Old Dominion at Kentucky, LSU, Akron, Ole Miss at Bama, at Oklahoma, A&M at Vanderbilt, Mizzou, Wofford at Clemson. I'll say under at 5 and 7.
South Carolina?
Yeah.
I'll say under as well.
Okay. Then Tennessee, who
they've got 3 wins on that South Carolina schedule, but beyond that, I don't know if they're any better.
Yeah.
They maybe have 4 wins, give me, on that schedule. Old Dominion, Vandy, Akron, and is that it? I thought there was another one in there.
Wofford.
Yeah, there's 4 there, but I don't know beyond that they're any better than any of the SEC teams are playing.
Right. Tennessee is 9. So they're Chattanooga, NC State, and Charlotte at the Dukes Mayo Classic, Kent State at OU, at Arkansas, Florida, Bama, Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Georgia, UTEP, at Vanderbilt. Actually, I think I'll push that at 9.
You going 9?
Yeah, I'll just say 9. Well, look, the only 3 games I think they even could lose on this schedule would be, or should even consider losing, would be Georgia, Kentucky, Bama, and Oklahoma. Oh, I guess I'll say 9. I think of those.
Push.
Yeah, I'll push at 9.
You had to choose which direction you going. I'd say over.
I'd say over.
Okay.
I'd say over. I think NC State with Grayson McCall will be really interesting.
Yeah, that could be
in
good.
a neutral site game, which is more their territory, but Tennessee fans will flood over that border and be there in Charlotte. So, yeah, I'll say 9. But if I had a lean, I would say over.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay. Next up, a school that most people think, unless you're a Texas fan, got a nice little draw at the beginning.
They absolutely got a nice draw. They absolutely did. It's not even like this is like the Paxton bringing up Lamborghinis. Like, we don't worry about NIL and they talking about Lamborghinis. It's like, just be honest about the situation. Like, it is what it is. They got a nice draw in the first year. That's not like a knock on the school. It's not saying that they don't deserve anything, but it's true. They got a really nice draw.
Yeah. So they are at 10.5. And I may be comfortable easily saying over here. Colorado State at Michigan. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
They've lost a lot.
But they've lost a lot, including their coach. So, like, here's where Texas was born under a nice star, in that you schedule this Michigan game, which should be really tough, but Jim Harbaugh and the national championship team happened before you have to go there and play.
Very fortunate,
them.
yeah.
Yeah. UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, Red River, Georgia, Vandy on the road, Florida at Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M. I'm going to say over, although...
What is it, 9.5?
10.5.
Damn, 10.5. Okay.
I might go under. I'm going to say under at 10-2. But, I don't know. It's like...
That's why Vegas put... I mean, we said, that's why they're spot on there. I mean, I say over, but, man, just thinking they're going to roll and go 11-1, even though that schedule does look like it's pretty easy. I'm going to say under, actually. I think they go, 10-2.
Yeah, okay.
I think they go 10-2. Red River's always a toss-up. And then Georgia, I don't know. That's great to be at that marker in your first year, coming off of a year where you were already great and you lost some pretty key pieces, but you were able to refill, and I think they're in a really great spot. But yeah, I just rolling in and going 11-1. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd feel good about that.
I also think that game against A&M is it's going to be tough.
Yeah, exactly. Oklahoma's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough.
So I think I'd be
they're
good.
Better than both of them, but
if it was at 9.5, I think that'd be obvious. I'd go 10-2 and not feel anything about it. But at 10.5, yeah, I think they're going to lose more than one game if I have to put my own money on it.
All right, A&M is at 8.5, and we got to go to the top 5. Vanderbilt's at 2.5, and we can just leave them off so we don't pick on them.
Right.
But Notre Dame, McNeese at Florida, Bowling Green, Arkansas, Mizzou at Mississippi State, LSU at South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, Texas. I will say under at 8-4 because that's what they do.
That is pretty much what they do. Notre Dame right out of the gates is a really interesting game, and they don't miss much in terms of. They don't have to play Alabama. They don't have to play Georgia. That's pretty nice. But yeah, I think there's just not a lot known about them right now. It's hard to think that they're going to be great. It's easier to see where they could be on the downside. Yeah, I'll go 8-4. You said 8.5 is the number there,
yeah.
So yeah, I'd go 8-4 for A&M. That feels like a nice little spot for them.
I mean, that's where they pretty much live.
It's pretty much where they are.
It's pretty much where they live. I think there are salad days ahead because I like Mike Elko, but let's be honest. All right, that went a little longer than I thought it would, so let's just go right to the top 5, Garrett.
Bienvenue. Paul Catalina's top 5. That's French, people. French. Huh? Classy. That's what this is. This is classy. You know what else is classy? TexasBeefHouse.com. Use our promo code SICK'EM10 for 10% off of your first order. This is Paul Catalina's top 5 best QB rooms in the country. Number 5. So you test these things. You test them. And then... there we go. They finally work. Number 5, Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, Will Howard. Jackson Dart, tons of starts under his belt, and Ole Miss is going for it this year. With what they put around him, not only on offense, but on the defensive side of the ball, should be really good. Walker Howard, transferred in from LSU, one of the most highly recruited quarterbacks in the country. When he did, he's been sitting there marinating for the last couple years. So when Jackson Dart is gone, Walker Howard should be ready to step in and roll right along at Ole Miss. They should not have a problem if they have an injury to Jackson Dart, based on the fact that Walker Howard should know the offense backwards and forwards at this point. Although we have not seen much of Walker Howard, so he's still a bit of a wild card. But if I had to bet on a quarterback room in the SEC, this would certainly be one of them, given the fact that Walker Howard has been in the same place for a couple years now and should know Lane Kiffin's system really well, plus everything that's around him. If Jackson Dart does have an injury and miss some time, they should be good to go. Number 4. I love clicking things 5 times before it happens. It's like replacing an AirTag battery. Number 4, Ohio State, Will Howard, Devin Brown, Julian Sain, and Aaron Nolan. I know this is 4, and there's no way that 3 of these guys are all going to be there for more than a year together.
Will Howard's just there for a year and should provide some valuable experience and athleticism when it comes to leading that Ohio State offense, which is loaded on the front. It is loaded at wide receiver. It is loaded at running back. They should be great, and they returned most of their defense as well and brought in Caleb Downs. But when it comes to quarterbacking, Devin Brown had a really good spring and is going to try to make everybody in the country know that he's ready to be a starting quarterback, if not at Ohio State somewhere. And then it's going to come down eventually to Julian Sand, the number one quarterback in the country, and Aaron Noland, a guy that Ohio State was thrilled to get when they got him anyway. And now they have both those guys who will compete it out down the line for who's going to be the starter of the future. And Julian Sand could even see time this year, according to reports of how good he was when he has been there. Number 3. Number 3. Oh, this is going to be a thing today. It's just going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. I'm glad I'm going on vacation at the end of the week. Glad I'm going on vacation. Oregon. It's got Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. Dylan Gabriel in his 6th year, we've seen him win games at UCF. We've seen him win games at Oklahoma. And now he steps into the best situation he's ever been in, roster-wise, at Oklahoma, and should lead them to a bunch of wins this year, his last season of eligibility. Dante Moore, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, recruited to UCLA just a year ago. He transferred. He's going to sit and learn, but he has starting experience and showed flashes of the athleticism that made everybody believe that he was a star quarterback of the future. And now he's with Will Stein at Oregon and learning from Dylan Gabriel, who has already brought along a couple of younger quarterbacks in his day. Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore, number 3 situation, the Oregon Ducks. If you're seeing a pattern here, these are all teams that should be pretty damn good in 2024. Number 2. There we go. I'm about to break this damn thing. Number 2, UGA. They've got Carson Beck, they've got Jaden Rashada, and they've got Gunnar Stockton. Jaden Rashada played a little bit last year for Arizona State, much like Dante Moore, showed flashes of the guy everybody thinks he could be, and of course is the most interesting legal case in all of college football right now. And I'm including everything realignment and house. That one, to me, is the most interesting court case ever. Carson Beck might be the first quarterback off the board in the 2025 draft. We know what he can do. And Gunnar Stockton is the hotshot freshman that they have coming in. So hotshot, in fact, that guys like Brock Vandegrift went to Kentucky. They've had guys leave because Gunnar Stockton's coming in. Gunnar Stockton came in right after Dylan Raiola changed his commitment from Georgia to Nebraska. And Georgia didn't seem all that bothered about all this. Of course, Georgia shouldn't be bothered about most things because they're a gosh darn juggernaut, and everything seems to work out for them. Like, oh, what are we going to do when Carson Beck leaves? Oh, I don't know. Just have a battle between Jaden Rashada and Gunnar Stockton to see who's your next quarterback? First world problems in Athens, Georgia. That's what they've got. And number 1, Paxton, I dedicate this to you. And this is taking a long time. Okay, there we go. Oh, nope. Look, it even went past something to something I didn't even want on there. There we go. Leave it all in, guys. We'll do it live. Texas. Again, this is for you, Paxton. This is how much I love you, Paxton, and appreciate your viewing. It's that I put Texas number 1 on the list, and not a bad one. This is a good list. Texas, number 1 on a list. I will say, though, you who almost got in this list that I think deserves to be on it, but none of their guys have made it through a season healthy yet, is Texas A&M. Connor Wigman, Jalen Henderson, Markel Reed all played well for A&M in stretches last year, in Jimbo Fisher's last year. And I think under Colin Klein, they're all going to get better. And it'll be interesting to see what happens down the line there at A&M. But they have some quarterback depth there as well. But back to Texas. I'm not even getting into who's behind Quinn Ewers, probable first-round pick, and Arch Manning of the football Mannings. This is a great quarterback situation that they have in Texas. So much so that a guy like Malik Murphy, who was highly recruited, transferred off to Duke, and he's going to start there this year. And we'll see how that goes for Malik Murphy. But Quinn Ewers keeps getting better and showed last year he could throw them to wins, although not all the time. But they've got enough weapons around him where he'll throw them to a lot of wins this year. They should have a great first year in the SEC. And if anything happens to him, Arch Manning seems like he's pretty close to ready to go from what we've seen from spring football and the way that he's picked up that offense and can step in. And with the players he's going to have around him like Cedric Baxter and Isaiah Bond and, Thor. I mean, they're just so good on Texas this year. He should be able to step in very well. And again, the future is bright for the Longhorns at quarterback no matter what because of Arch Manning and a guy they really don't have to worry about losing. I mean, because if he wanted to leave, he would probably left already and be starting somewhere else. He might have been the only guy with the cachet to shove Jackson Dart right out the door at Ole Miss because he is Arch Manning of the Ole Miss Mannings. So the football Mannings, and I guess tangentially the Tennessee Mannings and planet Earth's Mannings. But Arch Manning should be ready to go if anything happens to Quinn Ewers. And we saw how good Quinn Ewers was last year. They only lost one game in the regular season and then lost a very tough playoff game to a very good Washington team. So I would not sell the Texas quarterback room. I'm buying big on the Horns and their quarterbacks. And now I have to go take a shower because I said too many nice things in a row about the University of Texas. Austin is smelly. There. That's what makes me feel a little bit better. Too many hippies. Okay? That's that I can't just go through and compliment them for this whole time. It's not my personality. It's not me. But they do have a very good quarterback room and a very good team overall. That's going to do it for the top 5. Craig and I wrap it up right after this.
All right, Craig, there we go. Again, I feel dirty about complimenting Texas for a couple straight minutes. It was hard to do, but I did it. I think it shows my growth as a human being.
Yeah, you made it a point to tell everybody how hard that was to do. I don't know. I think that they got a very talented room, and it is what it is. So, yeah, if they deserve to be talked good about, they deserve to be talked good about. So, yeah, they do in that regard for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. UT Parking says, Paul changed the batteries and clicker. We just did. Like, literally.
That thing happens all the time.
It's last week.
Jittery.
So, I don't know. I mean, I will, but, in the middle of it, it just was, I had to roll with it.
Trouble.
So,
yeah.
Didn't want to start all the way over. All right, that's good enough for us. Smokey is back tomorrow. So all 3 of us will be here for 3 straight days. And then I'm leaving on Friday to go on vacation. And so other than John McClain, I'm not completely sure what we have on the show tomorrow because he and I have not discussed it. But there'll be stuff. So check out 365 Sports Night if you're here in the Waco area. That's going to do it for us. Bye, everybody.